Hey, so we need to talk. It's me, host Eric, and we need to talk. Does that sound ominous? I'm just saying we need to talk about something. I don't know. But it sounds so ominous, right? Hey, I'm glad you're here. Listen, we need to talk. We need to talk. It's got DTT, right? We need to talk. It's difficult. Hey, I need to talk to you about something very important. Sit down, please. Please sit down. Close your eyes. Take a deep breath. Are you ready? Okay, let's talk. What about? Something important. You mean you don't know what it is yet? No, I was hoping you did. Hey. Why do you keep saying hey to me? It's important for you to feel like I'm really bonding with you. Hey, we need to talk. Would you like to talk with me? It's talking time. If you'd like to talk with me because you realize that we need to talk, please do join the live stream and enter your talking into the text entry device of your choosing, such that it shall appear in the live chat to the right of my head. That's the way to talk. I should put talk in question mark and in quotation marks, scare quotes, because what I really mean is express yourself through words. Communicate with me. Tonight, what I'm looking for is everyone to come here and to express their true feelings about something. Is your true feeling about this thing gladness? Is your true feeling sadness? Is your true feeling radness? Is your true feeling a radish? If it is, what kind of radish? Is it a daikon or one of those red radishes that you grow in the garden? Tonight is a special night, a night we'll remember for all of our lives. Tonight's the night that you and I, you two people who are here, and I, make kitty love. That means that I'm going to sit here and go, yeah, 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 and you'll feel loved. Do you feel it? Can you feel the love tonight? As I believe it was Elton John famously queried in song form, as per Prince Eric, boat date. Boat date background music. Hi, boat date background music. I'm thinking about maybe having your name legally changed to boat date breakneck. What do you think about that? Breakneck boat date. Boat date boat. You know what's really presidential is making boat date boat jokes, which are hilarious and are sure to win you really any public office. Hey, look, it's a date boat. It's a boat full of dates. But if you say it's a boat date, you mean you're going on a date on a boat. They mean different things. If you have a boat date on a date boat, then you doubled down. You got yourself a date boat date. So, I mean, we really need a president who recognizes this and discusses it. Yeah, the thing is, Leaf Trimmer, I probably will end up being a Republican candidate for president. Almost for sure, because almost for sure Kamala Harris is going to be the Democratic candidate, which means I will end up running as a Republican in 24. It's not because I like the idea of identifying with either major party, but rather because I firmly believe I'm the best candidate for every individual in the country, regardless of their party affiliation, and that includes all the Republicans. They may not all agree with me, but I hope to convince them. I think that's the best answer I can give to that. Hi, Kitty Freshness Pants. What a special wonder you are. Oh my goodness. You're a natural kitty wonder of the world. Like America, my kitty has amber waves of grain. Well, Broccoli Todd, to be honest, that's asking me to break ground in two areas concurrently. And I don't think that's a good strategy, ultimately. The thing is, I'm quite confident that no Republicans really are going to vote for Kamala Harris in 2024. I'm also quite confident that if I can get my voice heard enough, that quite a lot of Democrats will vote for Eric Strauss in 2024. The reason that Republicans wouldn't vote for Kamala Harris in 2024 would in part be because, of course, she'd be running against me, and I'm clearly a preferable candidate against her or anybody else. So it's irrelevant her party affiliation. I could point to the fact that Republicans are, that both parties are highly partisan, but I don't want to encourage that behavior. I don't want to. It may be the case that I use that reality and it works in my favor, but I don't want to reinforce that reality or encourage it. So it's like, to the extent that Republican partisans are convinced to vote for me as the lesser of two evils or as a genuine candidate that they like and want to vote for, either way is fantastic. But it's like, I want their votes, and I want to give them some of my reasonableness if they're willing to take it, and that's true for everybody, no matter what party you are affiliated with, no matter what. If you have any kind of agenda that you can't put aside, you just say, you know what, I just can't stop. I just can't stop seeing the reality that Mia is the source of the problem. Mia is evil, and Mia is Mia. Okay, well, I'm not Mia. So if in fact you have good clarity as to who you ought to blame, which kind of people or which sort of agenda is responsible for what's gone wrong in the country, I am not that. So you can be confident you can vote for me. You can also be confident that I'm not your agenda, but I'm not the agenda you oppose either. I will, and you can also be confident that to the extent that parts of your agenda validate universally, I will do my very best to adopt those because that will be the most correct position. I think it's possible the U.S. will be split into 3 different countries. Well, it's interesting. You say we're as divided as the time of the Civil War. I agree. I've never seen the country as polarized as it is right now. If you want to blame somebody, I mean, there's so much blame to go around. What's the point? But here's the thing. historically, historians have given a lot of credit to Abraham Lincoln for preserving the Union, right? But of course, Abraham Lincoln didn't exactly preserve the Union. He forcibly put down an armed secession movement, and it can't be said at all that in fact he bridged the gap between the two sides in the country. But of course, a big reason why he couldn't bridge the gap between the two sides in the country during the Civil War was that the two sides were in disagreement about a concrete policy matter, namely slavery, and which states would be slave states and which states would be free states. In contrast, the current polarization is largely metaphorical. The distinction between some hardcore Democrat and some hardcore Republican in terms of what they actually support and don't support, in terms of how they actually carry about their lives, which behaviors they engage in, and whether those behaviors are morally reprehensible to the other, the answer is they're right on the same page. They both live their lives in much the same way. They both uphold the same values and virtues. They both condemn the same kinds of bad behaviors. Contrast this with one group of people who wants to continue formalizing the legal mechanisms of slavery in half of the states. In other words, to continue perpetrating brutal injustice against a population of human beings versus a side that doesn't. The actual gap between what the South wanted and what the North wanted was so vast in comparison to the actual gap now. I can talk to any Republican, Democrat, whatever, and it doesn't, in very short order anyway, get down to the core point of disagreement, right? Back in the day, before the Civil War, you could determine which side someone was on and make a meaningful distinction about that person based on the side simply by asking them one question: where do you stand on slavery? There's nothing equivalent now. There's no equivalent. The biggest potential areas of divide there would be things like abortion, the death penalty, maybe drug incarceration rates. You might say that drug laws are, as to quote my friend Taylor, drug laws are the hugest institutionalized human rights holocaust that everyone's cool with, So there's that. But the thing is, the amount of disagreement on those things is mostly held in the abstract. In other words, it really isn't about economic interests so much. It's not like you've got one half of the country that's reliant on brutal injustice to drive their economy, and the other half saying you have to stop that completely, even though it's going to kill everything, right? Wouldn't it be more related to how taxes are spent? Remember, the president doesn't do expenditures. The president doesn't write legislation. The president doesn't determine how taxes are spent. People, when they elect a president, they want to know, what's your stance on this thing or that thing? Of course, those questions are only going to give them misleading indications, no matter how I answer, if they're asking questions about things that are irrelevant to the job. In other words, the correct answer to how do you think taxes should be spent is, I'm running for president, not a legislative job. I won't be authoring any legislation. If you want to say, would you veto meow or meow? That's fine. I can tell you yes or no. I would be very clear about it. Would I veto a bill that meow, 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 meow? Yes, I would veto that. Would I veto a bill that meow, meow, meow? No, I would sign that. I'll tell you that no problem. If you give me enough detail about the bill, I'll tell you all in advance right now whether I'd veto or sign anything you want to put in front of me. You give me, pretend this bill was put in front of you, Eric. Would you sign it or veto it? I will tell you. I might, if it's complicated, I might have to spend some time reviewing it. But I could tell you if you can give me the gist of the arguments or the gist of the mechanisms of the law, I can tell you whether I sign it or not. Integrity and due process. I mean, who doesn't favor those things? Are you going to find anybody who goes, no, I'm in favor of deception and extra legal extradition? No, but I mean, Trump's not in favor of due process, right? He assassinated an Iranian general. Fucktard. Talk about handing the keys to the car to a completely incompetent child. Good for you, Seamus. My position is, if you want to take the vaccine, take the vaccine. If you don't trust the vaccine, don't take the vaccine. But then you'll be a free rider on other people's herd immunity. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, no more lockdowns. Well, the thing is, I don't believe there are very many of the restrictions that are federal in origin. Unfortunately, this COVID thing hasn't been interpreted correctly in terms of rights calculus. It's not a federal matter. It's not a state's matter either. In other words, powers not reserved for the federal government are afforded to the states or the people who comprise them, if not the states. So the thing is, this is one of those that the power should be with the people. In other words, the onus is on the individual. The power, the right to go about your business without taking extra unusual precautions should be not, nobody should interfere with that. But concurrently, if any store wants to put up a requirement that says you have to have a mask on to enter here, nobody should interfere with that either. But this all shouldn't be mandated from above. It should be individually determined. And the reason for this is because if I'm in a vulnerable population, I can take whatever amount of extra precautions I want to avoid contracting the virus. And if I'm not in a vulnerable population and I'd rather contract the virus than take all those extra precautions, that's just the norm. Now, we could conceivably imagine a situation where lockdowns like this were totally justified. Zav, I'm going to remove this comment instead of putting it on timeout. You're going to have to substantiate that, okay? I do appropriately hate BHM because I don't like racist narratives that continue to further the fiction that race is a real thing and continue to further that ontological imperialism, conferring onto others an identity you construct. So I don't want people to be wicked in the way that your last message was wicked. You conferred onto me an identity as a racist scumbag that's completely unwarranted by anything I've ever done or said. So you accuse me of saying the quote unquote N-word. First of all, there's nothing inherently bad about saying any word. It's always going to be contextually determined. So there's that. Second of all, I am fluidly transracial, which means because I was Black when I said that, when I covered Straight Outta Compton and Fuck the Police, I was during those songs African American. So if you're going to say I can't say it, then you need to argue that nobody can say it. Now, are you going to respond on point, ZV? If you want to respond on point and be honest and address me honestly as a human being, then I'm happy to engage with you. If you can't handle this actual kind of adult conversation, and you keep attacking without justification and defaming me in this fashion, then I will eventually ban you. Karma's Pimp, unfortunately, much of this COVID stuff is not being parsed by the courts like it should be. In other words, the courts don't want to take a stand and say, we got to strike down all this bullshit, because it would be such a bold and comprehensive act by the courts. They'd have to say the states don't have this power. It's not, historically, the Supreme Court hasn't issued those kind of rulings that have said neither the federal government nor the states have this power. Instead, the individuals have this power. Instead, the Supreme Court has tended to view individuals in terms of rights and sovereigns in terms of powers. The thing is, in this instance, we're talking basically about who has the power to determine what you put on your face and stuff like that, and in which contexts. Now, if I'm obviously very sick and very contagious, it is reasonable for society to require me to stay home and or take extra precautions to prevent making other people sick. In general, we should have a perception that that people understand they have a basic duty not to do harm to others, and that they'll fulfill that duty in a reasonable way. So it may be the case that someone is sick but has no reason to believe it and is actually contagious and gives other people the virus. Of course, again, ZAV, I'll give you another chance here. You need to respond to what I said and stop being hateful. Treat me like a human being. Stop being hateful, and I'm willing to talk to you. If you can only be hateful, then of course you'll be banned because you're not able to sit at the grown-up table. It's up to you. If you want to sit at the grown-up table, you're going to have to check the hatred at the door and put on your reason hat and be reasonable and talk to me. Okay, so, well, I mean, what I'm saying is, if you want to argue that it is inherently wrong for me to, quote, say the N-word, then you have to argue that it's always inherently wrong for me to say the N-word, because you can't establish that I'm not African American. I'm fluidly transracial. My race changes from moment to moment, ZV, depending on my mood and other factors. How many races do you think there are, ZV? How many races do you think there are, ZV? You tell me how many races you think there are, and then I'll tell you how many races I've been, okay? Well, the reason I can use the fluidly transracial argument in this instance is exactly why it exists at all. Because I'm trying to make the point that if you want to negate that I was black at the time, then you've got to negate that I was black at the time. And you can't negate it because it's not a real status. I am never black or white or yellow or red or anything else like that, right? I'm Eric. Zavi, if you think race has a basis in biology, you are wrong. You are completely wrong. So if you believe in races, Zavi, surely you can tell me how many there are. Surely you can falsify my claim that I'm black if you say that I'm not. I don't know why you would think you know better what race I am than I know what race I am, but you apparently do. I was born fluidly transracial. I didn't change. I didn't change my race. I was born fluidly transracial. I'm still fluidly transracial today. I mean, the thing about the COVID situation is, if you want to know whether I should be elected president, look back at the beginning of this COVID disaster and see what I was saying. Okay, again, you can't. I'm not going to allow you to defame me. In other words, to make claims that are false about me without even attempting to justify them. Okay, now you're going on timeout. Next time I'm going to ban you. Better stop it. You have to be a grown-up or I won't let you at the grown-up table. I'm saying if you think it's racist for people who aren't black to sing Straight Out of Compton, then why do you think I'm not black? Do you have any reason? Can you establish it? Do you have any justifications? Can you provide any warrants that prove that I'm not black? Can you take my blood and say, see, you're not black? I mean, if I'm from Greece, does that count as black? How about just across the Mediterranean Sea in Morocco? Does that count as black? How about a little south of that? Do I need to read the card again? Where do I stand on the political spectrum? So ABG, I get this question a lot. Look, I understand that race has been used in evil ways in the past, a lot of times by a lot of people, okay? My point is that race is how evil people justify treating individuals, not like individuals, but like a member of group that they've decided is like this, okay? That's what race does. That's what it is. Now, my point is, if you have somebody who murders somebody and their claim is, I didn't like the color of their hat, you don't go into the courtroom and argue about the hats. You don't say, red-hatted people have been oppressed too much. You say, whoever violated the rights of this individual and killed them needs to be held accountable for it. And their stupid justification of the color of your hat or the size of your nose or the shape of your lips is not even a justification at all. We shouldn't even afford it the credit of paying any attention to it at all. Anytime you do talk about race, therefore you detract from a real substantive argument. That's the main problem I have about race, is that there's not a single, I've never heard a single instance in which anybody has ever used race in an argument to successfully make a point about policy. All they've done is muddy-ish policy issues. I've heard it misused to justify bullshit. I've heard it for all sorts of stuff, but I've never heard it successfully used to justify any good policy decision. Can anybody point to me a single example? I mean, all the good race-related legislation says you will treat people like individuals and not like a member of a certain race. And so, in other words, every good piece of legislation that mentions race disavows it. None of them embrace it for good reason. It's an artificial distinction. It is not a real distinction between human beings. It's simply a made-up piece of bullshit used by some people to justify the oppression of other people when they have no actual legitimate justification for doing so. Eric, I missed your question. Where do I stand on the political spectrum? Oh, right. I wanted to answer that, actually. So I keep getting this kind of question. The answer, ABG, is I don't fit in any of your boxes because I'm what you might call a patriot, a patriotic statesman. I believe that we should address the president should do his job as well as he can. I've got specific kinds of things I'd like to address. I'd like to use the Justice Department to To impact case law is the way that I think the president can be most effective in returning the democracy to its rightful habits and institutions. The other thing is I recognize that I will be elected to do the job of the president of the United States. That means I am not there to write legislation. I'm not there really to even have a legislative agenda. I'm not there to do the job of the courts. I'm not there to define and interpret all the laws however I feel like. I'm not there to benefit myself. I'm there to do the nation's work. So when we talk about what agenda I follow or what box I fit in, then we are playing into the existing problem. We will never get the right president by finding a president in the right box. The right president is right in front of you. And I'm out of the box. I mean, there's a number of serious areas of chaos in terms of the American democracy that are big frame, big picture things that need to be addressed. You're not going to find any meaningful way forward through any existing conventional political approach. You need a grown-up, a real grown-up, an expert, the most qualified candidate in the history of America. Me. I mean, my point is basically the invocation of race in any policy discussion, even if it's something that's totally a legitimate complaint, such as disparities in arrest rates regarding drug crimes, even though there's not an equivalent disparity in drug usage rates. So that is strongly indicative of an irrelevant factor influencing outcomes in a way that it shouldn't. But the problem with that is okay, Oscar L., I'm not gonna tolerate just like mindless groupism. Like okay, so this thing here, you say mixing races goes against the natural order. Now, right off the bat, you make a naturalistic fallacy. You reference something that isn't even a real thing, race, and you say mixing. Well, what do you mean by mixing races? You mean a man choosing to fall in love with, have sex, and have children with a woman is equivalent to rattlesnakes having sex with Mexicans? I mean, it's like, Oscar, if you are not coming in here to try to set an example of, okay, so let's look at an example of incredible, insane, mind-boggling stupidity. If that's your goal, you're coming in and say, I want to provide a service. I want Eric to have a great example of mind-boggling stupidity. Then mission accomplished. No, it's mind-bogglingly stupid, Oscar L. Mind-bogglingly stupid. Okay? Race is not a naturally occurring division between people. Certainly, it's not even something you can define meaningfully. And so how you could possibly say that you're accounting for the impacts of mixing two non-existent things together is beyond me. But continue with your delusions all you want. However, your claims will be stoutly rebutted here, and you'll be expected to actually substantiate the bullshit you say. And when you can't and don't, you will be mocked mercilessly for your failure. That's the guy you need as president, right? I'm not saying, you're a racist. You're just as bad as people who hate Republicans. You're just as bad as people who hate Democrats. You're just as bad as people who hate women. You're just as bad as people who hate yeah group. You're just another fucking groupist. Just another stupid fucking groupist. Well, we are done with you and your groupist ways. I don't care what identity thing you fixate on. It's all fucking stupid. You are an individual. That means you have individual rights and responsibilities, sir. If you're going to think about politics, you better have half a brain. After all, the stuff you advocate is imposed upon everyone. So shame the fuck on you. Pew, 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 pew. Pew, 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 pew. I put words in your mouth. Quote from Oscar L. Mixing races in a population goes against the natural order. It's simply nature. There are foxes and whites in England and rattlesnakes and Mexicans in Mexico. You can only mix so much before issues. That's like saying people wearing red hats and people wearing green hats shouldn't be together because it's not natural. Red goes with red and green goes with green. Okay, well, stupid goes with stupid. So, Oscar, please find yourself the stupidest woman you can in the world and mate with her. Because to do otherwise would be unnatural. Remember, stupid goes with stupid. You need to mate with your kind, Oscar. Mate with your kind. Go, go troll the adult special education schools for a woman to mate with. Because after all, it's unnatural for stupid not to go with stupid. No, it's not nearly as dumb a statement. It's still wrong. It's look, the thing is, if you're talking about cultures and not races, if you're saying mixing cultures causes problems, in some instances you're right. America is a very different bag of potato chips than say Japan. If you go to Japan and you're not Japanese, you'll never really be Japanese. Even if you get Japanese citizenship and live there for 50 years or whatever, you'll always be not Japanese. But when you come to America, or if you're in America, whatever shade you happen to be popped out as, you're born here and you go to school here and stuff, you are American. Nobody thinks, I don't think that person's not American because they're a different shade or different eye shape or whatever, right? So it might be the case that you can find examples where particularly communitarian cultures run afoul of other cultural elements that conflict with their communitarianism. Communitarianism results in insularity and a lot of other bad things, right? There are some good outcomes too. I mean, they're not all bad for communitarian cultures. You take some place like Japan, and in some sense, there's a lot of security. Everybody kind of knows their place and their role and stuff. But on the other hand, there's not much autonomy for the individual. In American culture, however, it is fundamentally the greatness of America is born of the fact that we treat individuals like individuals. That means we afford individuals rights and we afford individuals the according responsibilities. Individuals have duties and individuals have liabilities. That's the heart of the American democracy is accountability. Accountability forums of public processes of government, accountability forums of public processes of courts, accountability forums of public elections where people are supposed to debate each other so you can decide who knows best. Right? Well, the thing is this, Oscar. It is true that there was a long time in human history where people from different parts of the world typically stayed in their part of the world and populations remained rather homogenous. That time is over. Now, just because there was such a time in which that homogeneity existed does not mean that homogeneity was inherently a preferable thing. There are some cultures that have shown when heterogeneity is introduced that their communitarian ways are threatened. This is not such a culture. We will never succeed as an America that embraces a limited communitarianism, let alone, a general communitarianism, let alone a limited communitarianism, like a groupist kind of communitarianism. No, that's not American democracy. That's not a citizen democracy. That's not how we roll. That's not how we've ever rolled. What are my thoughts on Trump? I mean, worst president since Andrew Jackson. Both of them ESFPs. But the reason he was so bad, it's important to articulate this. The reason he was so bad was he did so much damage to public discourse. He did so much damage to unity. He did so much damage to due process of law. He shit all over the office of the presidency and brought disgrace upon the country, frankly. As far as his policies, remember, a president doesn't get to implement his policy preferences. To the extent that Trump tried to do so, he tried to subvert the legislative processes or whatever. I oppose that because he's not doing his fucking job. To the extent that he worked with the legislature and got something passed or whatever, in my opinion, it's not like he got any substantive legislation passed that really pisses me off. Most of the shit that he did that might piss me off is done with executive orders. So it's like, no sane person thinks that that Trump did a good job with the presidency job any more than a sane person thinks a bouncer does a good job when they trash the bar. You know, it's like you're supposed to be in charge of keeping this place clean, not destroying it. All right, thoughts on Hitler? Like history's great villain. Obviously, authoritarianism is bad, and centralized control and communitarianism. I mean, that's like fascism is the sort of kleptocratic oligarchies version of communitarianism. So yeah, look, anytime you have a totalizing agenda, you end up with something that's totalitarian. Whether it's fascism, whether it's communism, whether it's socialism, whether it's identitarianism of some kind. You know, if you have a single paradigm that's limited and also subsumes other paradigms, then you're going to make mistakes in some areas at least. I'm worried about it too, but my point about Biden is the most important thing to take away from Biden is that it is time to elect somebody who's actually competent and qualified to do this job. But you know, my point, that makes me want to drink some water, Cloud. My point is about this. Everyone's just at each other's throat all the time, fighting for separate ends is absolute. Well, the thing is, everybody is fighting against the other team rather than in favor of America. They claim that their agenda is good for America, but what they're mostly interested in doing is blaming the other team, and when they win, rubbing their face in it. Okay, cool. It seemed like a weird question, but that's fine. Eva Braun. Eva Braun. I wonder if history books all have typos in them, or her name was actually Eva Brown. There's a good point. The dogmatic education system is something to come out of, so we have to be allowed to be wrong and learn. That said, violence can't be tolerated. I mean, the thing is, there needs to be a general consensus that before anyone in a citizen democracy gets to force everyone, that someone has to win the arguments. Xavier, weren't you here when I read the card earlier? You want me to read it again? Fine, I'll read it again. Everybody needs to have me repeat these arguments. I get it. It's like, if you haven't heard me make them before, then it's new to you. But it's a little tiresome from my perspective. Scientists have certainly tried for a long time to prove that there are different races, and it's all been disproven. It's bunk. Today, we even understand that there is more genetic diversity within the so-called races than between them. Anthropologist Carol Mukhopadhyay writes about how things we think of as demonstrating a biological basis of race are just not true. Race are just not true. In the United States, the sickle cell gene is more common among African Americans than in other populations, but it is not a racial gene. The genetic variation that causes it is also found in parts of South Asia, Southern Europe, and the Middle East, and it's only found in some areas of Africa. When we turn to the category Black, Africa has hundreds, if not thousands, of linguistically, culturally, politically, and historically distinct populations. Africa is home to the shortest and the tallest people of the world. Other traits vary significantly, including skin color, facial traits like nose shape and eye shape, overall body shapes, even the frequency of sickle cell and lactose intolerance. The problem with Americans' folksy way of defining who's who based on skin color is that skin color is not a discrete trait. There's a spectrum, a gradation of skin colors. And so marking off at an arbitrary point at which to say somebody paler than this is one thing and somebody darker than that is not a naturally occurring division between people. That was Jones C. If you want to hear how ridiculous shit gets when you think race is real, like, in 1921, based on the ruling of the Plessy versus Ferguson case, the Congress realized in order to meaningfully enforce the court's decision, which was that Plessy had complained that he had been made to ride in the colored coach when he was actually white, and the court found in favor of Plessy. So now the Congress needed to define a white person so that the court's finding that being white was a part of a person's property could be applied. So here's how Congress defined a white person in 1921. A white person has been held to include an Armenian born in Asiatic Turkey, a person of but 1/16th Indian blood, and a Syrian, but not to include Afghans, American Indians, Chinese, Filipinos, Hawaiians, Hindus, Japanese, Koreans, Negroes, nor does a white person include a person having 1/4 of African blood, a person in whom Malay blood predominates, a person whose father was German and whose mother was Japanese, a person whose father was a white Canadian and whose mother was an Indian woman, or a person whose mother was a Chinese and whose father was the son of a Portuguese father and a Chinese mother. That's the definition of a white person from Congress, okay? Now, of course, it provokes the question immediately. So why is this the definition of a white person? Why? Why is not something out? Why is it not 1/8 African blood? Why is it not a person in whom Malay blood comprises 30% instead of predominates? Why is it this way? Because that's what they felt like. Well, I mean, remember, it's important for you to realize that what's often said maybe needs to be said more often. The views and words of people quoted are the words and views of the people quoted and not of the one quoting them. I don't quote those words and say, I agree with this. I just quote the words because that's what the author wrote. Okay? So remember, it's possible to do a cover of a song that you maybe even find offensive, but still think is a good song. For example, would you have this reaction if I had covered the Eminem song, well, I was just a baby boy, but my mama used to tell me these crazy things. She used to tell me my daddy hated me. He used to tell me he hated me. And then I got a little bit older and I realized she was the crazy one. They say I can't talk about coke no more. They say I can't talk about milk no more. Slut think I won't choke no more till the vocal cords don't work in her throat no more. So is that me saying that? Are those my words, Xavier? Are you offended because I talked about women and referred to them as a whore? Remember, I didn't say that. Those aren't my words. They came out of my mouth, but I can't own them because they belong to somebody else. Right? We all have skin in the game. That's the thing. We all have a vested interest in seeing race be ridiculed conceptually, basically. Because we all have a vested interest in seeing individuals being treated equally and fairly by everybody. And so as a consequence, we have to bite the bullet and say, okay, in order for this to happen, we're going to have to let go of the parts of racism that we like. Right now, Xavier is very attached to the part of racism that he likes. But we will never transcend race successfully as a problem or a difficulty or a divisive issue until people like Xavier say, I too am an individual first. I too will treat you as an individual first. I will be a human being who is able to treat other people as human beings. Okay, well, you are offended that I said the N-word, or as some would say, okay, again, Xavier, so you're ignoring what I said, right? That's a problem. That gets you put on timeout again if you ignore what I say. I don't mind you talking to me about this, but you have to respond to what I actually said. So I already addressed that, right? Those are not my words. I can quote somebody else without owning those words. In fact, I can't own those words. They don't belong to me. Another artist wrote them. So you need to respond to that. If you don't respond to that and continue forward with your objections without learning anything or engaging with me meaningfully, I will put you on timeout again. If you say something meaningful in response that shows me you're capable of engaging with me, I'll continue to engage with you indefinitely. Thanks, Bobby Son. I appreciate your encouragement. The collective mind will always be totalitarian. They're controlled by a mono-narrative. It's tyrannical. Well, that's the thing. The one thing that preserves all of our liberty consistently across time, despite lots of other institutions and protections and norms breaking down, is freedom of expression. Because the bottom line is people with bad arguments lose arguments when they're arguing with somebody who knows what they're talking about. And people who lose arguments typically learn from those lost arguments and co-opt that which beat them, at least to some extent. That improves people's thinking. So one of the best ways I can help American people in America in general is when wrong people come to me who aren't thinking properly, who are being children in their public engagement of discourse, then I will scold them. That's one of the best things I can do, is scold Xavier for failing to act like a grown-up. What are the two What are the two distinct concepts being equivocated? What do you think the two distinct concepts being equivocated are? If you're accusing me of equivocation, you mean I've used one word in two different ways and impacted off of those two different meanings separately. Explain where I did that. Or do you mean I'm conflating? Because if you're saying I've equivocated, it means I've used one word in two different ways and not acknowledge that in my argumentation. Do you mean instead conflate? No, I'm saying I can't take ownership of somebody else's creative work. In other words, I can't pretend like I wrote Straight Outta Compton. I can't say, hey, I want the copyright money from that. I want the YouTube money from that song because I wrote it. I can't do that, right? It's like when I do a cover of a song, say a Billy Joel song or something, I lose the capacity to monetize that video because Billy Joel gets the royalties. Now, that didn't happen with Straight Outta Compton because Straight Outta Compton, the way I covered it, it's not an identifiable melody line that has been published in the music publishing industry. So I was able to monetize that one. But as a general rule, I mean, that just happened to be an exception. It's not like I intentionally thought about that or cared about that to begin with. The point is, when I cover something, it's not just actually not my words, it's legally not my words. Right? There's a difference between expressing your opinions, thoughts, and feelings and covering a song. I have hundreds of songs completed, Xavier. You can listen to them all and see if any of them offend you and explain to me why you find them offensive. But don't be offended by someone else's words when I cover someone else's song. It doesn't mean I agree with everything expressed in this song. That's like I might participate in a drama production, a play of Oklahoma. That doesn't mean I approve of everything that every character does in the play, right? What if I had written the song independently without being exposed to the original song? I mean, it just would have been a poor artistic decision. Because that's not true to my life at all, you know? Yes. For example, Xavier, it's not just me, it's not just you, it's anybody. So, for example, if you were to say, ooh, I want your love, girl. Yes, you know it's true. Got to remember, girl. Love me, hold me, 8 days a week. Those wouldn't be your words. If you were to say to me, Eric, Mary had a little lamb whose fleece was white as snow, and everywhere that Mary went, the lamb was sure to go. You would not be the author of those words. You would be quoting someone else's words, right? Those would not be Xavier's words. That would be a quotation, correct? You're going to have to look at the congressional legislation, Skygear, to figure out whether or not you're white. If you got a half Portuguese mother, 2/3 Serbian father, plus a grandmother who had an uncle from Romania, you are white. But if the uncle was instead from Slovakia, you're not. What exactly you are, you're not white. That's the important thing, because the key takeaway here is that being white is a part of your property. Your status as a white person is your property, right? Do you see how the courts got around the fact that race is not a real thing? They said, oh, well, your status as this race is a piece of your property. Talk about some legal smoke and mirrors, right? The courts couldn't find a way to actually establish that somebody was a race. So they just said, well, when someone does possess the status of a white person, it's their property. So if a person has the status of a white person and you deny them access to the white person railroad car, you've deprived them of their property, and you have to pay them damages. What did the Supreme Court not address? Well, how the fuck do you know if they're a white person? So what did Congress have to do? They had to write this ridiculous legislation. Yes, I know, Zavi, you've expressed that you feel that way, but your feelings don't matter if you lose the argument. You've not justified your position with any good reasons. You've not addressed any of the reasons I provided why I'm right. Therefore, you are wrong and I am right. No. Oscar L., I'm not trying to transcend race, okay? I'm refusing to be racist. What that means is I'm refusing to be stupid. What that means is I'm refusing to confer onto actual individuals an identity that I made up in my head, because I'm going to allow them to be real human beings, just like I hope they allow me to be a real human being. Ayn Rand would trounce who? Karl Marx? I agree. Karl Marx would not stand a chance against Ayn Rand. Ayn Rand is a bad bitch. I think Ayn Rand would probably show up in a dominatrix outfit, and Karl Marx would just be loving every second of it. I have a lot of respect for Marxists. No, you don't. Alex Rodriguez, don't say ridiculous things. Serial, though, don't say ridiculous things. It's like Marx was such a fucking, what, ENFP? It's like, you can't be serious. This passes for intellectual work of some sort. There's no explanation of mechanisms. There's no addressing anything that's serious. It's just metaphor and bullshit, It's like, God, your NI, if it's an INTJ, his NI does not replace actual thinking, okay? Your NI plus refusal to look at the for MTE is not any sort of excuse for intellectualism. But I suspect maybe ENFP, a bunch of gestures at linkages that aren't explained or justified. Exactly. I had no understanding of economics at all. We begin with the reality that left unchecked, in other words, if nobody points any guns at anybody, everybody does business with each other. So I do business with people all over the world. They hire me to type them. I talk to them for an hour. They pay me $100. Guess what's not necessary for any of that to occur? Any tariffs? Any what do they call that? When something levies or whatever, like there's no transportation costs. It's a straight up, this ecosystem of metaphysical playing field interactivity and stuff has enabled individuals from across the world to do business with each other, bypassing all central authority that might want to get in the way. Is it possible that there are instances where that autonomy is abused and people end up doing stuff that violates others' rights? Sure. Is it conceivable that some regulations by central authorities to keep markets clean and level is appropriate? Absolutely. I'm not a anarcho-capitalist. I'm not a libertarian. It's like I'm a mature adult. I don't have an agenda. I just would like to see a well-run American citizen democracy again. Somebody who knows what he's talking about and is not a moron. I mean, the thing is, of course, the notion that you begin with the current system what you see as inequities within that system and conclude that those favored by inequity, those in the favorable position of the inequity, are to blame for the lack of favorable position of those suffering in the inequity. That's a road straight to hell. A road straight to hell. It's like you are not thinking right. Yeah, and it's important, right? It matters. We, to a large extent, I think a lot of people have allowed themselves to devolve into this kind of adversarial framework where they have two kinds of political conversations: either back-patting teammate rah-rah shit, or oppositional shitting on the bad guy kind of stuff. Neither of those conversations are useful, helpful, or representative of what it means to be a good citizen. And so, in other words, I expect people to talk to me as though they are adults who care about being civil, reasonable, and correct. That requires them to respond to me just as much as I am willing to respond to them. They need to at least somewhat respond to me. Otherwise, they're not giving me the basics of courtesy that are necessary for two human beings to engage with each other. Modern humans have been around for 200,000 years. Racism is about 100 years old. The word got invented 100 years ago. So don't care about racism. I'm nice enough to all, but I don't support mixing. I mean, so you don't support? So in other words, okay, my first wife, with whom I had a child, so my child's mother, she was half Mexican. Her mother was from Michoacan and spoke with a thick accent and was very Mexican. Okay. And her father was from West Virginia, a Vietnam vet who had gone down to Mexico to find himself a Mexican bride. Didn't speak any Spanish when he arrived there, but learned it while he courted this woman and brought her back to America. They had a child, Melinda. I impregnated her. Melinda was pretty fucked up, actually, but I don't think from her for any reason other than she had a lot of FI. I don't know. Anyway, but from that womb, what she did have was excellent childbearing hips, and from that womb emerged my beautiful, fantastic, perfect daughter, Delilah, who's, I guess, a quarter Mexican. But I mean, that doesn't mean anything as far as I'm concerned. But if you want to play race figuring, would Congress consider her a white person? I'm not sure. I've read the congressional definition of white person, and it doesn't make it clear for me whether Delilah counts as a white person. Let me see. Okay. So you might say, I guess, that she's 1/4 American Indian, because the kind of Mexican she is, a person of 1/16 Indian blood, which is not from India. Okay. But it doesn't say what percentage of American Indian blood relegates you to not white. Perhaps you could clarify for me. Okay, well, if you're saying you don't think heterogeneous civilizations or empires or whatever you want to call them are a good idea, I mean, well, what we have seen plenty is homogeneous populations being involved in violent bloodshed against other homogenous populations, right? So I don't think we've seen a lot of truly naturally occurring heterogeneous populations like there are in America. Soviet Union forcibly made the population more heterogeneous with the conquering of all the Eastern Bloc countries, but that's not naturally occurring. So I really think that hi, Spade J, how would I describe myself as a person? No, Jebediah, you weren't even born when Delilah was made. How would I describe myself as a person? Pretty well grown. I've come a long way. I agree. AOC is an ESFP and will be shamed accordingly. ESFP should not be involved in politics at all. Not one bit. Of course, I'm still fluidly transracial. That's never changed. It's not always central to a question, though. It certainly isn't central to the question of myself as a person. I don't describe myself as a person in terms of any sort of racial identity. I describe myself as the slowest growing YouTuber in YouTube history. I would describe myself as a person who enjoys maintaining and participating an active community of people who like to chat with me. I describe myself as future president of the United States of America. I describe myself as having mostly completed the work necessary to be correct about most things. Why would you find the U.S. artificial? I mean, what makes the mix of people in America artificial? There was a stretch of about 3 weeks last month where I was feeling pretty spent, just like kind of depressed by the ongoing COVID stuff, depressed by just watching too much anime and not doing enough, and kind of dreading this process. But I timed the thing well. It's by the time February has come around, I'm quite ready to get rolling. I'm excited about it. It, like I said in a previous stream, it seems surmountable rather than insurmountable. Tell me now, if you're half black, half white, and you have a kid with a fully white woman, how white and how black is your kid? Your kid would be 3/4 white and 1/4 black. That would be, I guess, cereal. Maybe the color, the official color name. Eric, can you give me some tips on actually getting some folks in some sort of small community faster? I'm impatient and I'm a real nowhere man. Okay, well, it's not a very good tip, but I would suggest. Well, this is not a bad tip actually, but because I didn't really try this. The thing I tried wasn't this, and it didn't work. But I suggest contacting a bunch of random YouTubers that are pretty small still and asking to interview them. Be the guy who goes around and interviews YouTubers for a while. Then at least they and their audience will watch you. And as your audience grows, then you can start getting bigger YouTubers to say, yeah, you can interview me. And the thing is, what that'll allow you to do is direct your attention to something else other than yourself. This will make you much more successful than trying to show off your newest thing that you made. Yeah, or me, or find some person too who just has 100 subs. Interview them. It's like interview Cameron. Anybody, most YouTubers that are not very big will probably be happy to be interviewed. And if you edit it a bit, make it appealing, and if you can constrain yourself to actually following through on being a good interviewer, which means you're going to make way more questions than you are statements, which is tough sometimes. And if you can kind of have a scope of questions that you want to ask and constrain yourself to that range of questions so that you end up with something that can edit down to 10 or 15 minutes without a lot of editing, and you can do that consistently, you'll be bigger than me in no time. Can you do those things? I'm going to say yes, and I want you to do them. And I want you to prove me right. You can do it. Don't suffer from Eric syndrome. Don't end up with approximately equal numbers of videos and subscribers when your subscribers are over 6,000. I mean, that's what you need to practice, dude. It's crazy. It's a great NI. It's a great NI focuser because you're constraining yourself to the get and interface functions. You can get by without so much FE. You just have to limit yourself to TI and any inquisitiveness, like follow up on whatever they say with an interesting follow-up question. But don't get too far afield from the central axis line, of the interview. You can watch a couple of the interviews that I did really early in the channel. If you want to win it back when Talking with Famous People really was attempting to interview people and talk to people. But of course, the people I were interviewing weren't YouTubers. That was the problem. I was trying to interview random, regular people. And what I discovered is most random, regular people are much more shy about being in a video than you would think. And I would think as an fucking ow. And I would think as an ENTP, my fidgeting has caused me to hurt myself. Ow. If I was president, the presidential physician would rush in right now. So let me see your thumb, Mr. President. Say, dude, it's fine. Get out. Why are you always hovering around me? You think I'm going to die at any moment? I don't know. It's a good idea. Sean O'Neill's got a good idea. Interview adult film stars. What advice would you give to a young INTP who is financially comfortable with the rest of their life? Well, I'm Eric, not Rick, but what advice would I give to a young INTP who's financially comfortable with the rest of their life? Could be a trap, It's I feel somewhat the trap of the easy setting right now, but this is a fairly recent phenomenon for me. Historically, I've not really lived life on an easy setting, which is to say I've had to be a full-time career guy in order to make ends meet. But right now I don't, and I haven't for a while, and I probably won't for the rest of my life. The thing is, I know back when I was younger, I knew a person who was even a little bit younger than me who was probably the same thing you just described. I mean, he's definitely financially comfortable, like he didn't have to work, but he could be it could be he's an INFP. I always was quite certain he's an INFP until the last time I talked to him, or a couple times ago. I actually hadn't thought about it for years. It's like I determined that he was an INTP a couple years ago and never thought about it again. And I actually tried to ask him a couple of PI questions, and I don't know. He was kind of drunk, and maybe he just didn't feel like hearing any personality shit, or maybe, I don't know. But it's possible that he's an INFP. I don't think so, though. So FE fourth. The burrito helps a little bit. I'm a pretty good interviewer. Here's the thing you discover about interviewing people. It's a kind of a tricky business in that some people are guarded, suspicious. Some people are very open. Some people are perfectly comfortable talking about meow, while another person might be extremely uncomfortable talking about the same meow. Some people are simply boring. They don't have any interesting answers to any of your questions. And you end up with what ultimately turned out to be a boring interview. What I ended up thinking ultimately after interviewing people, I mean, if I had found an easy way to get interview victims, whatever you want to call them, interviewees, I might have kept at it, but it was a struggle to find people to be interviewed. But because I was trying to do it via Facebook. For some reason, it didn't occur to me to interview other YouTubers. I don't know why. So, Rick Guley, what I would say is growth for an INTP is probably mostly going to come through development in the third and fourth slots. The thing is, being an SI user, we need to build a big repertoire of shit around us before we get started. That's the INTP's really biggest problem is they never feel quite ready to get started. They haven't covered all the prerequisites they need to really get started on the thing. Now, I've said before that the world's most productive INTPs are probably Japanese because INTPs are subject to extrinsic motivation, you might call it. You know, it's possible to motivate an INTP with shame. It's very possible to shame an INTP. So, in a culture that uses a lot of shaming, INTPs will tend to be more SE than they might otherwise. ENTPs as well. Like my client Jeffrey, he's an ENTP, and he has a lot of both SITE help and a lot of pressure from his parents about getting all A's and everything all the time. He's in this expensive private prep school, and he's much more diligent than I was at his age, but he has a lot more hand holding from his mom and people like me. You need a high five Jebediah's Emporium. Jebediah's Luscious Knapsack. Those are some sweeping high fives, huh? So I might be spotting some poonie sometime soon, TMI. Congratulations. Remember, just because a woman has sexual intercourse with you, it doesn't mean you have to immediately make them your forever life partner. Okay? That's what you think. You're going to think that, I'm sure. After you poke her, you're going to be like, love of my life. You and I forever. And we'll never leave each other's side again. And she'll go, whoa there, Mr. Speedy Gonzalez. Whoa there. Slow it down, buddy. Slow it down. That's what she's going to say. Good night, Karma's Pimp. Don't forget to check Karma's back pocket. She tends to stash a little bit of her earnings back there, try to hide them from you. Don't be afraid to bust out your pimping hand. Hi, Kitty. Are you playing In and Out Kitty again? It's very clear to me that if my kitty has a favorite burger venue, it's In and Out Burger because she's such an In and Out kitty. Have you heard of J.D. Unwin, his research, Sex and Culture? No. I haven't. But if you're going to tell me to read what he says, I don't play that game. If you believe what he says because he gives a good reason for something, then you should be able to express that reason to me in a way that I can understand and be convinced by it as well. If the reason you give me is not actually convincing, I'll explain to you why, and then you're still left without a good reason to make the assertions you make. Yeah. The other thing is, you probably have a number of potential projects, you might call them, that are somewhere in your head. So you've thought about doing more ideational work regarding that thing or this thing or whatever. If you can decide on a single project, you do have, in some sense, a better capacity for doing that than ENTPs do. If you can force yourself to decide on a single project and settle on that, then you can use external FE to force yourself to meet some milestones. Like, in other words, you set it up that you've got to present some piece of work to somebody at some day, at some time. You'll show up with that work done because you don't want to fail on FE grounds that badly. Basically, because with SI as a third slot, absolute value, you really suffer a lot from memories of your own social failures. I still say ESFJ. I mean, every INTP pretty much says no when I tell them that. They go, ESFJ? I don't even like ESFJs at all. I find them unbearable. I don't know. I still say ESFJ. INTPs secretly want to be with a woman who puts up a sign that says, "Today I choose joy." Why? Beats the shit out of me. What they do? Secretly, they want to be with a lady who has wall signs conveying the truths that one ought to uphold, such as, "Nothing great is ever accomplished without enthusiasm." Ralph Waldo Emerson. In script, the signature below. INTPs want to be reminded that love grows best in small homes. In and out, kitty. Stop being an in and out kitty. You know I don't like that. I've talked to you about this so many times and you just continually ignore me. Look, I lived with an ESFJ for a lot of years, and the thing is this. They are excellent wives. Like, they'll feed you not as well as ISFJ will feed you probably, but they'll clothe you. They'll remind you who to greet at the party. They'll make sure that you aren't lost in the fray. They're very proud of how smart you are and how creative and brilliant, and they rely on you to tell them what TI validates, and you like that, you know. Personally, I found it unbearably invasive into my own values. So it's like she's FE Dom, I'm FE third. I'm selfish about FE. I want to get my own I can tie my own FE shoes, mommy. Basically the ENTP ESFJ thing. And then the inability to be moved by my NI made me pull my hair out on occasion. Just like, okay, lady, you can take your wall signs and you can take your smile for the Facebook picture again shit, and you can take your management of our image and you can shove it up your ass. I'm tired of this shit. Tired of this ESFJ shit. Just like, God, you gotta be so ESFJ all the time? Does SI have to do something with misophonia and misogynesia? I don't know what those are. I have to look them up. Kitty, you gotta be fucking kidding me. Do you want to be inside or outside? Make up your mind. Let's see. Misophonia? Do you have misomyophonia? If so, you could be entitled to substantial compensation. Misophonia is a disorder in which certain sounds trigger emotional or physiological responses that some might perceive as unreasonable given the circumstances. Those who have misophonia might describe it as when a sound drives you crazy, their reactions can range from anger and annoyance to panic and need to flee. I mean, I have a fairly strong response to negative sounds. Like, I'm one of those people who is engaged in a permanent, ongoing freak out over leaf blowers. Fucking hate leaf blowers. Like, God, how loud does it have to be for you to move some leaves around? Why don't you just, shoot off some fireworks while you're at it to move the leaves around? Let me see. I guess the other one would be images or something. How do I argue with people if my problem is with the frame they use itself and they have no conception how to think or speak about anything outside of it? Well, I mean, I think the first thing you do is you present an alternative interpretation under their frame and then point out how your interpretation and their interpretation and the alt interpretation also reveal how it's possible to interpret through multiple frames. Let's see what your question earlier was. The introduction of sexual liberation destroys civilization in 3 generations or 100 years. Why? Are you saying historically it's done that? Okay, Oscar L., let's say you were right in that historically it's done that. Well, the cool thing is we would have put an end to that cycle with birth control, right? Because the reason sexual liberation would have linked to civilization decay would have been the fact that women who have sex with lots of people end up getting pregnant and they don't know who the father is and there's no way to test it and so forth. No, it had nothing to do with pregnancy. It has nothing to do with pregnancy at all. Sexual liberation's downfall of civilization thing here is just based on what? Like what's the mechanism by which a woman or a man having more sexual partners over the course of their life rather than fewer leads to civilization decay? What's the mechanism? David Sanderson says, do you believe that God actually exists as an actual entity? I mean, I know that those words express a category error rather than a meaningful question. Man, not fighting for partner safe energy equals building civilizations. So, okay, I've had relationship lengths of, in my life, 2 years, 3 years, 14 years, 2.5 years, and now going on a year and a half. So, according to you, then, I did my maximal civilization building in my longest relationship, right? I don't think that's true. I think I've done my maximum civilization building over the course of the last couple of relationships, including this one. You know, it was Kimberly and Rachel. So it certainly isn't true if we test it on an individual level. Oh, I see. Women having multiple partners means they gather emotional baggage that breaks down relationships, family. So how much of a factor is that in dooming a relationship to failure? Is it by the partner? So a woman who's a virgin, that relationship is extremely likely to work. Whereas a woman who's had a lot of sexual partners, there's zero chance that's going to work, right? So in other words, when people get together at age 15 with another virgin, those people generally stay together then monogamously until they're about 40 or 50. Right? That's how it works. You're still with your first girlfriend or boyfriend, right? Because after all, at that point, both of you have had the fewest number of sexual partners, which means you are the most likely to not break down the relationship and to build a good, healthy family. That's the point in your life when you're most likely to build a good, healthy family and stick with that relationship, is when you're 15 and a virgin. That's what you're saying? Christopherson, nobody says that. You could link a study for me? But Oscar L., you've made the claim that women having more sexual partners is your link story for the decay of the decay of civilization, Western civilization. So let's test your actual warrant. We don't need a study to test it. We can test it on any number of individuals. We can test it in any number of ways. There's a lot of thought experiments that more meaningfully test it than any empirics ever possibly could. For example, let's look at that. Okay, so if the mechanism worked the way you said by per individual, then it would be the case that people are most loyal, most reliable as family members and as relationship partners when they're 14 or 15. But we know that's not true, so that's contraindicative of your warrant. Let's look at another sort of thought experiment. If it is in fact the case that somebody who's been in the dating world for quite a while and is say 36 gets into a relationship, that relationship is doomed to fail. Except I'm in a relationship with a 36-year-old woman right now, and I've never been in a more peaceful, happy, perfect relationship in my life. We never fight about anything. We're a perfect match. There's no conflict at all. But she's had more sexual partners than me, I bet, and I'm 49. I've never asked. Not really my business. And you know what, Oscar L? I haven't found that sexual intercourse with Rachel has either reduced my overall drive and ambition. After all, I am running for president of the United States in 2024, nor has having sexual intercourse with Rachel caused civilization to decay. I'm pretty sure me getting my hump on isn't responsible for the COVID lockdowns. Pretty sure. Could be, I guess, but that'd be tough to prove, right? Why are 20-year-old virgins more reliable civilization builders than 20-year-olds who've had a few sexual partners? Explain the mechanism by which your claimed impact occurs. Explain the mechanism. What's the reason why? The warrant. You know, we'd be in utopia if we could just lock everybody up in chastity belts until they were 45 years old. At that point, you got a real generation of civilization builders. You got a bunch of people who are desperate to fuck for 25 years. They're sure to build a lot of civilizations. I mean, what makes you think that monogamy and so forth correlates with civilization building? It's true that disruption and trauma in a person's life requires that person's attention. So if I go through a divorce and it's a tough divorce, I am reduced as an individual during that time. It's also the case that if my partner died in a raid by barbarians, for example, that would be a trauma that'd be tough to deal with. You know, if your wife cheats on you, that's a bitch. It really crushes you, and it's tough. Also the case that if your husband gets his head chopped off with an axe by a barbarian invader who then takes you away and rapes you, that's also pretty traumatic. So, I mean, it is true that the contemporary age has loosened society's grip on the sexual habits of the individual. In other words, those norms have broken down as we've tested them for logical validity, for argumentational scrutiny. You know, like do they withstand? Are they robust argumentationally? We've tested them. We've determined they're not. I'm testing it right now. We're determining it again. They're not. You don't have an explanation. There's no reason you believe this. There's no mechanism you've established or talked about. When I try to ask you for the mechanism, you say statistically speaking. So it's also the case that statistically speaking, more people that almost everybody in prison for drugs consumed either alcohol or tobacco before they got into drugs. That doesn't mean alcohol causes people to become criminals. It doesn't mean cigarettes cause people to become criminals. It's a correlative illusion, right? So statistically speaking, if you don't provide a mechanism, you've got no reason to think there's a causal relationship. And that's just like basic kind of required thinking. If you can't, if you're not willing to even engage the issue in terms of any kind of proper analysis, then you're not going to get any right answers. The thing is this. Here's what I feel happens, to a lot of people, like, Oscar L. Oscar L., my diagnosis is that you very badly want to feel safe in a relationship. And that the reality that women tend to have more sexual partners than men, and that as you get older as a man, it's likely any woman you get with of your same age will have ever more sexual partners than you've had. This is the reality. And it does make men feel unsafe. I don't feel unsafe in my current relationship at all. And the reason I don't feel unsafe in the relationship is because I if anything, I feel like, utterly adored in this relationship, valued beyond any degree I've ever been valued by anybody other than my mother when I was a little kid, maybe, she can continue doing this indefinitely. It won't bother me. I don't want her to continue doing it. I don't desire it, but if she does, it doesn't bother me, and whatever, it happens. She expresses fear a lot of times that somehow there's some NI thing, right? Like, it turns out this single truth outweighs all the other reality we already have in front of us. And it turns out Eric's going to leave me, or Eric's going to cheat, or Eric's going to get tired of me, or something like that. You explain to her, it's like, you can keep expressing concern and fear all you want that you're not safe or you haven't been secured properly in some regard, but don't change the fact that I'm not going to worry about it, really. I'm not going to go like, oh, are you in trouble? Because I know you're perfectly fine. That neither of us are going anywhere. We're going to be together for the rest of our lives. So I'm not concerned that her concern is representative of an actual problem. You know what I'm saying? I keep just reassuring her, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about, woman. It's like, we're not going anywhere. Are you kidding me? I've never been this loved. The woman adores me. That woman spends so much time with Eric, and I'll go inside, and what should she be doing? Listening to my video. It's like, Jesus, woman, don't you get enough of me? Or just all the time being with me? That's a woman who really fucking loves me. I have never been anywhere close to loved as well by anybody as Rachel clearly loves, values, and thinks highly of me. She really thinks she scored, So fantastic. It's so what this shows you is that when two people are in a healthy relationship in which they treat each other very well and are very fair to each other and respect the individuality of each other and want the other person to be happy and want a peaceful, same page relationship and are both intuitives and like the same kind of stuff, well, all of a sudden magic, and you go, oh, now I get it. When people say oh, you just got to look for your soulmate or something, it is possible to have an impossibly perfect relationship. And we spend so much time together, we never rub each other wrong. We never get on each other's nerves. And guess what? It has nothing to do with how many sexual partners she's had. Although I will say it is a good thing that she and I both went through some bad relationships first, because we both needed to learn a lot of things from those bad relationships before going into this one. There are a lot of mistakes I've made in previous relationships that I haven't made in this one. I'm sure the same thing is true for her. It helps to be grown by experience in failed relationships in order to have a good relationship. And that is because almost everybody will choose the wrong person multiple times before finding the right one. Let's see here. A less monogamous civilization would disappear in 3 generations. I mean, you absolutely have not warranted that yet. You keep repeating this claim. I keep asking you for a mechanism. You've provided none. There's no reason as to why you're making this claim. You say here, the crazy thing is, you say here, no, Alex, sex and culture explains it well. That sexual customs are everything, quote unquote. So explain it then. Why? What is the mechanism by which sexual customs changing produces decline in civilization? What's the mechanism? I've asked you this multiple times. If you can't answer it, you don't have a position that is supported by any good cause. You just have an arbitrary claim that you call a belief, but is really just a whim of words that you are attached to, or a projection of your own insecurity or something. And that's fine, but don't pretend like it's justified with logic or reason or anything that matters. It's complete bullshit what you're saying. If you can't answer the question. If you can answer the question, then answer it. What is the mechanism? You haven't established it yet, and we've been talking to you about this for a long time now. So I'm really beginning to doubt you have any actual reason to believe what you think you believe. You're just projecting your own insecurity at that point, probably. It's all about that D size. Let me tell you, you want to talk about God reaching down to a woman, touching each of her bosoms with one of his pinkies, and causing them to manifest the pure glory that is true gravity-defying perkiness, combined with substantial size and heft. You're talking about the glorious breasts of one Rachel Abeloso. It's just, you've got to be kidding me. It's like, why there's just like these they defy gravity. So perky. Nature adapts, yes. Nature adapts. I mean, look, here's the thing, Oscar. If you want to make that argument, then do a little thinking first. First, test it out in the animal kingdom. In other words, do species that are monogamous thrive more than species that are non-monogamous? So first ask that question, see if you can find a corollary there. Then ask the question, when we look at individuals, is it the case that people's most long-lasting relationship correlates with the time in their life when they have the fewest sexual partners? We see it doesn't again, it falsifies again there. When we look at previous examples, say Rome, what was the mechanism by which you claim that sexual promiscuity led to the downfall of Rome? What? In other words, if you say it led to the downfall of Rome, you're saying that mechanistic conditions implicit in that behavior linked to civilization destroying vectors because of meow. And here's what all those things are. So you need to say all of those things in order to have that position. If you haven't thought those things, if you haven't answered those questions, if you haven't gone through that kind of testing process, then you're not actually trying to be correct. You're just trying to affirm the position you want to be true. And it's important that we don't prioritize what we want to be true. We prioritize what is true, especially when we don't want it to be true, because that's the way that we can grow as thinkers and people and human beings and become more truly a realized and adult actual human being instead of like just somebody who litters on the metaphysical highway. When people say claims that they can't substantiate and just spew bullshit, you're just throwing litter out your window onto this field of words. And none of the rest of us who are trying to be responsible citizens appreciate it. Now, you can pull that litter back into your car by actually addressing what I'm asking you, by actually answering the question. If you can't do that, then stop. You're just polluting. You're just polluting with nonsense that's unsubstantiated, unwarranted. They don't comprise actual beliefs of yours. They just comprise things you wish were true. Oscar L. You can't conclude that it's so if you don't have a reason why. That's not a conclusion. That's called stating what you wish were true. Now, conclusions are derived from premises logically. In other words, having good reasons earns you the right to draw a conclusion. It doesn't work the other way around. I mean, that you would say that unironically as though it were going to pass some kind of argumentational muster is depressing. I'll read this out loud. It's really depressing that somebody would actually say this out loud and think this was something that people should take seriously. Promiscuity would be problematic for a variety of reasons. And as for J.D. Unwin, he only concluded this was so. He didn't want to say why. Understanding is not easily proved. Conclusions ought not be haphazardly drawn, is the correct way to look at this. In other words, you don't say you've reached a conclusion unless it's actually a conclusion. If you're just throwing out speculative nonsense, call it that. If you have no real warrant as to why sexual promiscuity leads to civilization decay, then there's no reason for anybody to take you seriously. I will give you an actual warrant. Promiscuity in Rome led to a increased number of pregnancies out of wedlock, some of which may have been noticed by the man. In theory, we could argue if this became rampant enough and men became suspicious enough that or hurt enough by being betrayed that they might run off to fight in Roman wars and die too quickly. Or I don't know, one can make various arguments like that. At least it's a warrant. It's not a very good one, but it's the best one I can think of. No, Oscar L., you think too little. I don't argue too much. You think too little. You claim to have a belief based on J.D. Unwin's work, but you acknowledge that J.D. Unwin himself has drawn conclusions from no reasons and insisted a link existed that he couldn't explain. And that the fact that explanations are hard to come by, it's just something we just deal with. That's how we end up with theories like spontaneous generation. Look, when you leave a piece of meat out, it grows maggots. Where do they come from? Oh, well, they just spontaneously generate. Well, why? Well, we don't see anything happen in the meat that causes, we don't see maggots crawl over to the meat. So we don't have any other explanation. So this random explanation claim that's unjustified by anything, but they just appear out of nowhere. Of course, they don't. Flies lay eggs on the meat. So for a long time, spontaneous generation was the accepted scientific explanation. based on empirics. I bet the spontaneous generation scientist who showed that nothing happened in the meat and yet it grew maggots was quite determinate in his empirics that, in fact, maggots appeared out of nowhere. And when asked why, he'd say, look, explaining is hard to come by. The fact is, I've proven empirically maggots grow spontaneously out of meat. That's what he said too. Because he, like Unwin and you, don't like to use what's between your ears. The brain, the thinking part. You have to think adversarially towards what you want to be true before you'll allow yourself to assign it a value of truth. In other words, you shouldn't embrace this unless it's the strongest argument, not because it's got some flimsy semblance of a justification that allows you to cling to it despite its wrongness. That's fucking completely backwards. Replace it immediately with the correct arguments. You know? Which is to say, it's not necessarily the case that sexual liberation doesn't lead to civilization decay. It might. Maybe. Who knows? But until you have a reason to believe that's the case, you shouldn't believe that's the case. No, you're not citing a conclusive life works that's solid. You're not citing anything that's conclusive at all, as we've already explained and you've ignored. And you're not citing a work that's solid at all because what does it do? It mistakes empirics gathering for justification of its speculative conclusion, just as per the spontaneous generation example. Now, I've made that clear, Oscar. You have an opportunity now to learn and grow or to cling to your wrongness as it carries you to the bottom of the sea. You choose. And don't expect sympathy from me when you were drowning on the seawater of your own failure. I love my poetic piao-piaos. I feel very pleased with myself with my poetic piao-piaos. I'm trying to say, I'm like Naruto, okay? I'm not going to give up on Oscar L. I don't think he's a lost cause just because he's projecting his insecurity as a policy prescription right now. He can get over that. He can be honest with himself. We can all do it, except for ESFPs. As long as he's not an ESFP, he can do it. A little humility. How am I not being humble? I'm not saying anything other than factual shit, you know? It's not a matter of humility or arrogance or anything. It's a matter of, are you a serious adult who takes words seriously, who makes claims with real justifications, or are you childlike in your thinking and in your disregard for other human beings, equality? Because remember, when you advocate policy, you advocate forcing your position on everybody. So it better universally justify. Would I deem you a fellow paladin, a fellow righteous paladin? I would say you are a paladin in training. So I'd say you've got all the necessary things a paladin needs, which is you've got a naive optimism born of being coddled by loving parents. You've got plenty of extroverted enthusiasm and ideation. And you've already experienced victimization at the hands of quite a nasty INFJ, I must say. So that'll help you to build some boundaries. You got to build some boundaries. Of course, there's equality. Oscar L. I mean, the thing is, I'm affording you it right now. I'm affording you the same respect I afford everybody else who comes in here. Anybody who comes in here making bullshit, trashy claims will be asked to justify them. And if they fail to justify them and persist in them anyway, they will get the thorough scolding and shaming that they deserve, as you are now. So suck it and sit down and gobble it up because you ordered it, you paid for it, now eat it. If equality was just an idea, I'd stop hammering on you and just say, Oh, it's okay. You're right, Oscar. I'm going to coddle you and your childish wrongness. But instead, I'm treating you the same as everybody else. Because I'm not an asswipe. In that area, anyway. In other areas, I can be a bit of an asswipe. But when it comes to treating people like individuals and human beings first, I treat everybody the same. And I am not an asswipe in that area at all. Now, granted, once I've talked to you for a while, or once I've engaged with you in some fashion, whether it's talking or, dealing with you in a business dealing or whatever, then obviously I have data about you and I might draw conclusions that you are worth less of my time than somebody else because you're not listening to me, So in that regard, it's true that you are not equal to me in your capacity to listen and respond on point. But it is not true that you don't have an equal responsibility, as I do, to validate that which you would force on everybody universally rather than personally. Oh yeah, you'll need a license as well, Isaiah, from All Licenses All the Time. You want to be a licensed paladin. Well, Oscar L., the point is, I don't treat everybody with respect. I treat everybody with the respect to hold them accountable to a single universal standard. In other words, if you are going to say, we should force my shit on everybody, then you have to justify it universally. And I hold everybody to that same standard. That way, I won't let some idiot force their idiocy on you, and I won't let you force your idiocy on someone else either. That way it works. Everyone's protected that way. I just say no. Instead of coddling wrongness, instead of treating it differently according to who says it, I will jump down the throat of anybody who spews bullshit. And hopefully you'll learn from it. If you want to keep fighting me, what that shows me is you're probably adversarial to mapping solutions in general. In other words, like if you always want to prioritize your particularist frame and your particularist experience in conjunction with each other, and you never want to use the universalist frame, then you'll be fundamentally adversarial to everything I'm saying because you'll say, you can't, you don't know, your boxes ultimately don't hold truth. My intuition, shitty though it is, holds truth. If you're that, then we're never going to see eye to eye. If you're not an ESFP, then it's possible for you to grow in this area. As far as I can tell, ESFPs are the only ones who cannot make any progress. But the fact is, in the status quo, you are making terrible fucking arguments. I'm responding perfectly to all of them. All of my arguments are destroying yours because they're so much better, and you're ignoring that fact. That's not true, Oscar L. I talk to all kinds of people all over the world all the time. You have a problem with being honest. You're very, very dishonest in your assessment of your own ideation, your assessment of my ideation, of your assessment of me as a person, all that stuff. You're very dishonest. You know that's not true, but your feelings are hurt right now. You're feeling backed into a corner or something. That's when it's time to actually embrace something called real humility. A truly honest person is truly humble. That is to say, when I'm wrong, I don't defend it. I immediately go, oh shit, you're right. You're right. I'm going to replace my wrongness with the right thing. And I hear it from people of all walks of life. Most of the people here I would not call members of the intelligentsia. I call them regular folks like me. I'm not a member of the intelligentsia either. I don't have any master's degree or PhD or anything. I'm just a regular citizen who chooses and embraces and upholds the value of, if you're gonna advocate for something that applies to everybody, it needs to validate universally. If you won't uphold that, then you're not talking like a grown-up. Absolutely, Oscar L. All anybody has to do is make a single good point that defeats what I'm saying in any way. And I will not only acknowledge, but scurry to take whatever is useful from that person's rebuttal. So I look for opportunities to be wrong. Unfortunately, I also look for I just generally check to make sure that nobody's spilling beer all over the place or throwing trash all over the place. You're throwing trash all over the place. So I'm trying to talk to you. Hey, I don't want to kick you out of the party, but please, if you're gonna say, hey, everybody, come here, I've got something very important to show you. And then they get in there and you just pick up a magazine that was on my coffee table and go, this. And then, okay, at this point, you're just fucking with people, right? You're saying you've got a truth, but you don't have a truth. You just have a random whim opinion because you can't support it with anything. You don't justify it adequately. So it's not actually an opinion. It's not actually a position. It's just your feelings. Well, fortunately, Oscar L., not everybody is so opposed to having actual intelligence benefit everyone in the country. And that's what my intelligence does when it counters terrible ideas like the ones you're presenting. It protects everybody from your wrongness. It makes it less likely, hopefully, that you'll try this argument again somewhere else. Certainly, I won't permit this discussion to happen again here because there's a decent chance that you're cloud. The lack of engagement is, at this point, you're doing that thing where you just refuse to actually address what I'm saying as though it doesn't matter, that your overall understanding is more important than the actual parsing of the thing. That's very, very frustrating to me because it means basically you're still a child in terms of your ability to engage in discourse. Adults don't do that, generally. So if you think that discursive adulthood comprises being an academic sort, I mean, I can't do anything about that. It's like you didn't provide any information. You didn't provide any information. I asked you specific questions that you didn't answer. Or no, you said you did answer it, actually. You said there's no explanation. There's no mechanism. He just drew the conclusion from nothing. That was your answer. That's not information that supports your position. That's information that points out how silly your position is. Right? And how silly, especially, it is to hold a position without having an understanding of why you hold it. No, Oscar. Fuck. Okay, I'm done with you. I'm not talking to you anymore. Yeah, you're never gonna bullshit your way out of anything with me. My bullshit meter is as refined as it gets. Like, if you're gonna fake me out, you're gonna have to execute some kind of caper like that guy did the other night. But you're certainly not gonna just get bullshit past me. Never in a billion years. Right. Exactly. Oh no, I haven't actually said a blame or anything. Yeah. Next time, I'm hoping we'll get the 5 pull-ups done in less than an hour. Oscar, you're done. You are done. Now, okay, so this is, guys, what I would call the ESFP cycle in a nutshell. They come in, they're trying, and then they get frustrated, then they get toxic, then they get regretful. Then they try, then they get frustrated, then they get toxic, then they get regretful. Because fundamentally, none of their core values validate in this medium. This is a medium that rewards extroverted intuition, introverted thinking, extroverted feeling, introverted intuition. What are the values of an ESFP? Extroverted thinking, extroverted sensing, extroverted thinking, introverted sensing, and they're polar TI introverted thinking. There's only one that's a shared value, which is FI. And that's gonna, even though it's shared as a, I mean, TI, even though it's shared as an absolute value, it's it constantly is a source of conflict because ESFPs value it absolutely, but think it should never be used as a means to accomplish anything. And so they reject all universal validation as fundamentally missing the point. Even there, of course, it's almost like they're constitutionally unable to get the point. So it's kind of ironic in that regard. I mean, I'd like to think it's exclusive to ESFPs because then it's just 1/16 of the types that we have to, that we can sort of, if you got to cut off something to save a human being, like let's say their pinky's gangrenous, and if you don't cut it off, they will die from the gangrene. Well, you want the thing you cut off to be as small and useless as possible. I need like a pinky toenail. If we just make it an ISFP exclusive problem, then it's just like getting rid of your ugliest, useless pinky toenail because whatever, they're just the ISFPs. But if it's not linked to type, if it's a systemic problem of sort of intellectual maturity or something, I mean, I just wouldn't expect it to express so stubbornly. You know, I'd expect a different, at least some little bit of meaningful engagement with the ideas that I say, right? Not just with whether or not it. Okay, fine, Piss Offerson. I've talked about this plenty of times too, and I will discuss it again. Am I being groupist when I'm talking about ESFPs like this? I'm saying no, I'm not. There's a big difference. If I say you're this way because you're a race, I'm making up random bullshit. If I say you're this way because you're an ESFP, I'm describing the limits of your attentional configuration in a way that's actually proved true time and time again. ESFPs cannot handle this environment without freaking the fuck out. It's just how it is. ESFPs will sell their car for gas money. I don't know what to tell you. Hi, Matthew. My good friend Matt. I was talking about him earlier. The ENTP. That's him. That's Matt. Hi, Matt. Hi. You're an important friend. I'm so happy to see you. He's an IRL friend that I've known for since well before the YouTube channel. True dat. It is a matter of mood. Okay, I agree with this option. Listen, I want to stress this. I totally agree with you that there's no reason to assume every ESFP who encounters this channel has that awful reaction. What I am saying is there's a great benefit in assuming that everyone who has that awful reaction is an ESFP, which means at least that way it's not a systemic problem. It's just a fundamental value conflict that ESFPs will never agree with or like me because our values fundamentally conflict. They think that my mapping work is offensive to their experiential frame fundamentally, and their experiential frame is fundamentally offensive to my mapping frame. So we will always have this kind of piao conflict. If though I'm able to say the only people with whom this happens is ESFPs, well, that's fantastic. It's more useful, right? I agree with you. It's bad to assume ESFPs are always like that, but it's much less bad to assume that people who are always like that are ESFPs. I mean, I don't think it is a fantasy or complete farce. It is absolutely legitimate to say that people who are both unreasonable and unable to meaningfully respond to any of my points, despite multiple repetitions, that tends to be a habit that strongly correlates with the ESFP. ENFP maybe somewhat too, but they will come back later usually and have heard you and have processed what you said and have factored it in some way. You know, ESFPs don't do that. ESFPs, it's because they have their blind spot is logic, and their weakest conscious function is intuition. So they validate their weak intuition with their feelings. They refuse to validate it with logic. And they feel good outcomes if they've managed to be efficacious in this arbitrarily validated weak intuition. Naturally, they're going to have a problem with an environment that highly prioritizes the exact opposite shit. I mean, I know a lot of people are completely unreasonable, but they're not all completely unreasonable in the same way, right? It's like some people start off unreasonable, but when they see that you're really trying to talk to them and be a good person and really communicate with them, they will be willing to work with you to some extent. What I've seen happen with some people is every time you try to even build some sort of mutual ground at all, they'll shift ground. Anytime you try to rebut what they're saying, they'll shift ground, and they just keep shifting ground. And so it's like that particular kind of unreasonableness is distinct from other kinds of unreasonableness. And it correlates very strongly with the ESFP. What's the topic of this? The topic of this is whether or not you need to use more scrotum polish. I'm saying yes. Matt's saying yes. But Bobby's son says no. You currently have adequate scrotal sheen. And then, you continue to insist you're a girl, even though nobody believes that. This again? I just saw that link. Piaka piaka pow, piaka piaka pow, piaka 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 pow. That's the topic right now, is piaka piaka pow. Crazy people are unreasonable, but not all unreasonable people are crazy. It is true that if somebody's actually experiencing some sort of psychotic break, all right, I listen to it. I will listen to it. It is kind of a good song. I'll dance for you. I'm dancing, Boba Fett. What's just going on? All right, well, I agree, Christopherson, that it's kind of cheap and easy. Like I said, that everything gleams. As long as I only do it one direction and not the other, it's not harmful. I'm not committing any ontological violence. And it's a quick get out of jail free for everybody else. If you follow my lead, you'll discover I'm loster than you. And you'll want to know the way to get back out to wherever it was you thought you knew. And tomorrow will be just like today. We lost then too. It's a matter as much as a matter of will. And the things I do and the direction I point to still seem a part of me. The departed me. And I wonder, well, it's a matter of mood as much as a matter of will. And the things I do and the direction I point to still seem a part of me. The departed me. And I wonder, and I wonder if I'll ever see them again. All right, you win the point. I shouldn't do that. I agree. But it's like there's a rhetorical profile that is pretty consistent. Okay, I believe the crash was too loud as well. Keeping in mind that I made that song, yeah, go have a smoke for sure. After you go have a smoke a bowl too. All right. That song was made in 2005 or 6, maybe. It was made a long time ago. I'm actually quite impressed with my production, given how long ago it was I did it. Compared to most stuff I did around that time, it's a much more successful overall track than most. Yeah, well, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily disagree with that either. I'd have to listen to the symbol choice again. A lot of times shit sounds bad if it's just too loud. I mean, a lot of things that you go, ew, turn out to just be an issue of how big it is in the mix. At the right level and the right stereo space, it sounds fine. Yeah. I don't know if that's the case here or not. You might be right. It might be a bad symbol choice, but it's hard to even tell without hearing it mixed in properly, because it'll always, whatever way it stands out, it'll be like, ew, if it's too loud, even if it stands out in a good way. Eric, what's your favorite food? Whatever I eat when I'm really hungry. The topic is whatever you make the topic a good mother. That is generally how it works around here. You just have to want it enough to go to the trouble. You may have to repeat yourself a couple of times because I'm so, I mean, the thing is, what's happening there, you're right, Pispis Alverson, is I'm engaging in my own little groupism shit because I, too, sometimes want to have a name for that which I oppose. And it's still nevertheless a mistake to have that name be the name of a group of people. So, in other words, if I were to name the thing I oppose, continually shifting adversarialism, I don't think you'd have a problem with that, because it's not a group of people. And that's what I'm actually opposing, is continually shifting adversarialism. If you are not adversarial because you want to actually correct a wrongness or test an affirmation or something, but rather because you just want to beat me at something, then that's a problem. Okay, cool. Maybe I should. Thanks, Boba Fett. Appreciate it. Uh, yeah, there's a couple other things where a couple other songs where I think I had a crash or a ride either be much too loud or in a weird place. And I listen to it now, I'm like, why did you put that there? What were you thinking? But it's like everyone has to grow in their own arc. And it's interesting too because it's like, well, I've definitely grown a lot as a musical artist and as a producer, I guess, since then. It still is the case that if shit comes together properly, um, if you catch some manner of lightning in a bottle, even if it's not full blast lightning, but just a few sparks or whatever, that you can make something that you still like a long time later, while everything else that you made at that time you don't like till later. That shows that there is the capacity to attain greatness in any moment of your developmental arc. How high that greatness, how great that greatness is another question. I'm saying greatness within your own body of work. So that track there stands up against stands up among at least my best tracks. Maybe not quite, but pretty well. Certainly, I'm happy to listen to it again. It doesn't bug me to listen to it. And yet it was made so long ago. When most of the stuff I made right around that time, probably I wouldn't care for very much. So yeah, it stood the test of time. So it's like it's kind of encouraging on a lot of levels. It's like while it is true that I've had to grow a lot, it is not true that you have to be full grown to get it right. So presumably, if you're fully grown, you never get it wrong. Maybe you never declare something that's wrong finished, I guess. But it's also nice to have enough of a body of shit to be able to meaningfully by SI more than NI, by a plenty of SI and a little NI, know what a bad finished song by Eric sounds like, a medium one, a good one, and the best kind by Eric, within Eric's range. I'm not comparing myself against anybody else, right? But I need to have a lot of shit to really understand what my own quality range is, like what my failures sound like and why they fail. I need not just to make a bunch of different shit, but I need to have time to listen to all that shit too. So here I am, 50 years old, and I finally feel like I'm almost ready to start recording music, Mom. You know, uh, that's just how it goes when you're an NTP. That's just how it goes. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Um, erring on the side of not wanting to set expectations I don't meet, I'm going to say maybe. I feel more enthusiastic than maybe about the idea right now, but it really depends on how good the questions are. You know, Skygear, there's only one way to find out if there's an extraterrestrial inside your woman. You got to stick your penis in her. You got to keep probing around. If you keep poking up in there, and eventually you might hear a little squeak and then some alien sound. That means, yes, there's an extraterrestrial inside your woman. At that point, you should, no reason to quit while you're in the heat of the moment. Just go ahead and finish. But when you're done, make sure you wash it really well, because aliens can carry various diseases. Free probings. What do you think if I stood on a street with one of those sandwich signs that just said in black letters on the front and on the back, free probings? And I had some like pamphlets in my hand, like I was going to hand them out. I wonder what would happen. Would people come up to me and ask me how they could get a free probing? What the fuck is that? Is there an animal outside? I better get my stabber in case it's a burglar, so I can stab him with my stabber. Let's see. Stab. There. I'm all done stabbing the burglar now. So, you're the squeaking alien inside the aforementioned wives that are undergoing a series of probing experiments? No, I'm saying when you hear the squeaking, that means you've successfully poked the alien, and you can identify that's what happened. But you got to hear not just a little squeal, but also the weird sounding alien language. So you just hear the little squeal, it might be not an alien, but a fairy. Fairies sometimes go up there to live. They're called vyads. They're like dryads with a vagina. Probably attract the wrong kind of attention. I stay away from people who want free shit. Well, if they came up to me and asked for a free probing, I'd say, okay, tell me what really matters to you. Let me probe the innermost thoughts in your brain. Right? They go, oh, you didn't really mean a probing. I'm like, no, you pervert, I didn't. Get away from me. That's probably the problem, right? It's not so much that people want free shit, it's that people who want a free probing are not people you want to talk to. Hey, Eric, my brother is an INFJ and he doesn't seem to have very much direction in life. Can you give me a few words to nudge him in the right way? Rick's brother, listen. You and I and Rick are all team members of a team that's working towards the same common outcome. That is unity, truth, justice, beauty. Join us on this venture by applying your vigorous most energies towards measurable outcomes, despite being TE polar. Like that? Does that sound pretty good? Hey, Octavia, you go to sleep. You go to sleep. You go to sleep. I don't want to go to sleep. I'm awake right now. I'm practicing wakefulness. You prefer nymphhood? Sometimes a nymph will live inside of a vagina. It's just kind of like, it's like you get up in there and then there's a second tighter. What is that? And the nymph goes, eh. And from inside her stomach. What was that sound? Eh, eh. Is that you? No. See you around the corner. Okay. I'll be checking or looking around for you when I round the corner. I just say these things to see if your SI agrees with me, just needs someone to know the voice. Thank you, actually, Octavia. So I appreciate you saying it. Yeah, you're saying it caused me to look at the clock and go, "Holy shit! Is it 2:09 already? How long have I been? What?" Thank you. If there's a nymph inside a vagina, and inside any vagina is a potential nymph, there is actually a very small chance of you doing an infinite number of vaginas at once. I mean, at some point, the vagina is going to get too small for you to poke. That's the problem. Probably after the first one, you might be fine with. I mean, even that, you're probably not going to get into the first one. There's a limit to how big the nymph can be if it's going to fit inside of the chick's vagina, right? It's got to be pretty. I don't think there's any way, no matter how gaping loose that nymph was, that you're really going to fit in her. Maybe. I guess if the whole nymph baby can come out of there, you can probably get up in there if she's. It's really like sloppy thirds, This is an important conversation topic. What happens if there's a nymph living inside your woman's vagina? It's an important question because, surprisingly, it's one of the top 7 Google search queries last year. What happens if there's a nymph inside my woman's vagina? Should I be worried if there's a nymph inside my woman's vagina? Or will the nymph inside my woman's vagina hurt my penis? Those are common search queries. That brain is being wasted on bullshit. This is not bullshit, good mother. This is not bullshit. This is what's known as hilarious ideational wonder. Okay? Just sniff it. Smell it. Doesn't smell anything like bullshit. It smells fresh like a spring breeze blowing down a mountain stream near a pine forest full of violet-colored flowers. There's a condition where some women orgasm hundreds of times a day. Sounds miserable. Persistent sexual arousal syndrome. They used to call that nymphomania. Look, this isn't a pornography movie. It's a medical documentary on the condition nymphomania. That's what pornography directors used to try to say, and then courts are like, nymphomania is not a disease. Please excuse me from PE. I am suffering from nymphomania today. I don't understand how come your nymphomania precludes you from doing physical education, Eric. I gotta spend the whole period fucking, duh. Someone agrees with you. If you're somebody who has an opinion about how chicks being slutty causes the downfall of everything, then I will be very, very surprised if you were doing anything but projecting some basic insecurity. As I indicated earlier, it is the case that no, horse hamburgers is not horse shit either. Okay, it's neither bullshit nor horse shit. It's more comparable to something like this. You are starving and thirsty in a hot desert, crawling on the sand, and these words are bowls of soup and cool bottles of water flying at you from all directions. Have you seen a relationship between cognitive functions and sexual preference? If you mean like this type sexually prefers this other type, I could talk some about that. If you're saying, is this type most likely to be gay? I think ESFPs and to a lesser extent, ISFPs are most likely to sort of fuck what they feel like fucking and find that question silly. I think maybe INFJs are males are most likely to be misperceived as homosexuals when they're not. In other words, I think that INFJ males have trouble presenting as conventionally masculine and also being so socially aware, I guess. It's not chicken shit, it's not bullshit, not cheap shit, not horse shit. This is real, grade A, pure, uncut human shit. This is my own shit. I'm sharing my own personal shit with you. While you're shooting it, I've asked you to stop. I've said no firearms in the shit exchange, please. But you've ignored me. Why is no one mentioning fish shit? Well, because it's so hard to explain what you're saying. Did you say fish it? I said fish shit. Fish it? Fish shit. Fish what? Never mind. ISTPs love hentai. INFPs love smutfic. What's smutfic? I've never heard of smutfic before. Is that like Smurf porn? Is there Smurf porn? I mean, I tell you what's the Smurfs more than any other show is set up for a ridiculous, like ridiculous porn with all the Smurfs bukkaking all up on Smurfette, you know? That would be an episode of the Smurfs I might watch. If for example, Gargamel were to be invited, do you think he'd hit that shit? Or would he still try to eat it? Like, normally Gargamel's always trying to eat the Smurfs. But if he goes and he happens on a Smurf village right when they're in the middle of pulling a bukkake on Smurfette, do you think Gargamel's going to get in on it? Or is Gargamel the cat or the bad guy? What's the main? There's Gargamel and then there's the other one. It's either the cat, either the cat's Gargamel or the guy's Gargamel, and then the other one is named something. Does anybody remember what the other one's named? Azrael. Azrael the cat, Gargamel is the dude. Okay, I meant to say Azrael, not Gargamel. Who's more promiscuous, Gollum or Dobby? Ooh. Dobby. Dobby's a sub, I think. Dobby's been a sub so long that he's forgotten it's just a role-playing thing. No, not the one about NWA. The one that says Eric will be president in 2024. What if they're banging? Who's banging? What banging? Where's banging? Why? I mean, Gollum and Dobby are a thing? You know what I heard? I heard Gollum called Dobby his precious. You like Dobby would die if somebody gave Dobby the 1-2? It depends. Pokemon Sub and Pokemon Dom. Yeah, those are interesting games. I'll have to check it out. when I already disagree. I don't think you will disagree. I think you'll agree with everything I said in it. It's not very controversial, really. I don't think anything I'm saying in there is really controversial. Everyone in the chat should tell us your jobs. All right, Broccoli Todd, you're a broccoli farmer. Good Mother, you're a stay-at-home mom. Aeon G, you're a neon sign. Octavia Silver, you're 8 silver pieces. Bobby Sun, you're a celestial body. And me, I'll be Horse Mumbler's groom. Horse Mumbler, that makes you the horse. But that's kind of the most important role in this play, actually, is the horse. You're a horse abortionist? 100 horse abortionists distorted their contortionists when portions of their ocean fish disgorged in quarreled pork and dish. But you got to start somewhere. You got to start there and work your way up to more complicated approaches. You know, when you've attained full abortionist mastery, you can literally startle the fetus to death. And it just jumps right out of the vagina into the trash can. It's amazing. That's a true, elite level. They've been training for years with their jutsus to do that. No, Boba Fett. No. When you try to punch a fetus in the tummy, you're almost sure to hit its whole body because they're very small. Doesn't make any sense. You can't even see where their tummy is. You got a woman between you and the thing, for God's sake. Think about the woman. You're Bobby's son. I can edit the baby out of the PC hardware. Good, you do that. Your NE is always strongest late at night, Eric. You need a bedtime story before you go. I would like to tell a bedtime story. I want to tell a bedtime story. Oh. Pokemon eavesdropping and Pokemon docs. Pokemon doxed and Pokemon Trojan. It's like the Pokemon game that introduces a bunch of malware to your computer, and the Pokemon game that publishes all your documents and private information on dark web BBSs. They still have BBSs. Do they still exist? Are you the toppest of the horse abortionist tiers? There's 48 abortionist levels you can attain at. They go from dissuader, somebody who weakly attempts to dissuade the fetus from staying alive, fails to do so, all the way up to, Goebbels. The glory of these killings is wonderful. Yes, think about the woman. You're way too power blind to be president. Oh, me? I see. Power blind, which means what? That I can't see. Am I unable to see all kinds of power? Can I see nuclear power? Can I see horsepower? Or am I blind to all kinds of power? Can I see the power of love via the eyes of Huey Lewis? You can have Pokemon Lockdown Alert. It's a Pokemon game that every time it finds any possible risk in the neighborhood, it shoots a text to your phone that orders you to lock down. And if you stay locked in your room long enough, you earn like a Squirtle or something. It rewards you for locking yourself up. So, it's so much better than these lockdowns because it's incentive based. Instead of saying you have to lock yourself up, it says, hey, if you lock yourself in a cage, we'll give you a prize. And if we can really refine Pokemon lockdown, everyone will gladly and willingly stay locked up in their house so that they can earn ever more powerful Pokemon. If all else fails, offer whoever you're negotiating with, in addition to whatever else you're offering, offer them your most powerful Pokemon. That almost every time will seal the deal. Like when I'm president and I'm having negotiations with like Putin or something, I say, all right, fine, fuck it. I'll toss in my Charizard. And okay. Да. Здравствуй, Владимир. Oliver Linehand's position on abortion is the best one I've heard. He is in favor of abortion because he wants babies to die, and against abortion because it gives women too much freedom. I mean, that's nailing it on both counts there, buddy. You are hitting 1,000, as they say in baseball. What is the relationship between NE and weed? There is no relationship between them. I mean, a little bit, sort of. It's like in the morning, sometimes I'll feel antsy and not able to settle into an activity until I pull a couple of bowls. That hasn't really happened in a while. I don't really feel that way that much anymore. Smoking weed doesn't really do anything to me. I mean, it does in the very short term. If I pull a good bong rip, I'll have like a bell ringer, which I love, but it doesn't last very long. Like I don't stay high per se. One thing that's made clear that we have learned tonight, Morge, I agree. We have learned one thing more than anything else. The 4 horsemen of the apocalypse are all fucking some sluts. If it weren't for those darn sluts, we might have a future as a species. They just can't stop spreading their legs. All of civilization's juices squirt out of them when they spread their legs. That's why we don't have any more civilization juice to run the civilization on. Hey, you sluts, come on, stop it. Do you want to end up like the Romans? Conquered by barbarians? And then devolving into a half a millennium long period of dark ages? I don't want that. I can barely put up with 300 years of dark ages, let alone 5. So chicks, hey, zip it up. Keep that vajayjay inside there, in the pants. Stop giving it up so easy. I've heard some farms have already begun to lose the knowledge of fertilizer as they devolve back into a pre-civilized state. It's terrible. Gonna try and go to sleep, but here it is. Eric, you recorded some of my favorite realities of me. Really? Oh, I'm very excited to see this. If women didn't establish boundaries, we'd be dead by now. What does that mean? I mean, wouldn't it be the case that if men didn't establish boundaries, we'd be dead by now too? Like, if I didn't establish any boundaries, if I said, sure, you can steal all my stuff and punch me in the face. If everybody did that, all the men did that, wouldn't we be dead by now? I mean, sexual boundaries, like, hey, stop touching my vagina. That's private. That's just for me, Tom, Steve, Bob.
I'm going to play a song by a man over in the corner, I think. His name's Eric.
Matt covered my song one time.
You start to feel strange and you're wondering if the range is on. Sending sparks soar in the kitchen sky. An actual night. Is there no talk to the dark up above the shell? But she stores a child above the sleeping forms of vivid night figurines of western lonely tide. And lie beneath a million running suns. They're rugged and they're done with the actual night. It's the second night. You start to feel strange and you're wondering if the range is on. Extending sparks soar in the kitchen sky. An actual night. Is there no top to the dark up above the shell? Where she stores a child above the sleeping forms of vivid night figurines of western lonely tide. They lie beneath a million running suns. They're rugged and they're done with the actual night.
Unexpected surprise.
If you want to hear the studio version of that song, I will play that right now. The original studio version of that song was recorded quite a long time ago. Oh, why can't I find that song? Huh. Let me look here. Here it is.
It's the second night when you start to feel strange and you're wondering if the range is on. Sending sparks soar in the kitchen sky. An actual night. the note off to the dark up above the shelf, where she stores the child above the sleeping forms of vivid mind figurines of Western lonely types. They lie beneath a million running suns. They're rugged and they're done with the actual love. It's the second night and you start to feel strange and you're wondering if the range is on, sending sparks to soar in the kitchen sky. An actual night is the note up to the dark up above the shelves, where she stores the child above the sleeping forms of vivid mind figurines of Western lonely types. The lives and
My wallet!
they're rugged and they're done with the actual love.
The thing is, I type. I'm much more comfortable typing media as a type and sort of pretending as though I'm typing the person who made it than I am typing characters. So, for example, Weezer is a very INFJ band. LCD Sound System is a very INFJ band. Eminem is a very ENTP artist. Donald Fagen is a very INTP artist, make very INTP stuff. Matt's actually a spectacularly good musician, and he's just being modest, and a great songwriter too. He's done some really good stuff. What I wanted to hear is, want to do is play some Matt songs. He's got a lot of really good shit. When somebody says, I want to hear one of your songs, Matt, you pick one that's good, what would you pick? What's that one where you're playing the guitar and it's got like a kind of close-up video of you, and it's kind of like very NI song. What's that one called? If you send me a song that, look, my songwriting, if I'm successful, at least some of my songs play like you would never conclude an ENTP wrote them. And I know that some of my songs, you definitely conclude an ENTP wrote them. I think in general, my more successful songs are ones you wouldn't think of as being an ENTP wrote them, although it's possible to have a very successful ENTP style song. One example of an extremely just hits on all cylinders, works perfectly, kills it despite being fully ENTP in its indulgence rather than by moving away from that, is the song Rat, I think it's called, by Penelope something. It's about oh yes, there's a rehearsal. It's a dress rehearsal tonight. Why aren't you in costume, my Joe? You are supposed to be the understudy for the leading lady She's running late. I might need you to play Cleopatra. We're putting on a play of Cleopatra today. And you're Cleopatra. So you need to get used to saying your lines. Here, hand me that asp. And wait a second, you're not Mark Antony. Would you like me to go over more of your lines with you? What the fuck is this? I said a big square. It's a pyramids joke, you see. She said cube. Would have been a much better joke if I said cube. Would have made a lot more sense. Because obviously the corollary to a pyramid would be a cube, not a square. So I just really ruined everything. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry I ruined the party. I get it. You all want to go home now. All right, future Mr. President. Do you have your hands on your hips, by the way? Because it certainly sounds like you have your hands on your hips. What's your plan for not being too soft on these incompetent women that hold these government positions? Okay, first of all, I don't have a plan for not being too soft on these incompetent women. You can look at my platform if you'd like. You'll notice there's no section on what to do about these incompetent women. So obviously I don't have a plan on that. Well, I did mention in an earlier, however, live stream that one way in which I would like to see the Justice Department engage the courts on the issue of executive orders and the scope of executive power is I would test it by trying to establish a precedent that there exists for the president, and this is actually a power he probably should have, the ability to subpoena before him any federal public servant, except for members of Congress, members of the Senate, and members of the Supreme Court, who are separate branches of government and not subject to the president's scolding. But except for them, any federal government employee that the president can insist they come to his office so that he can yell at them. Now, there will be incompetent people and people who make bad arguments and bad things and but whatever they are, woman, man, anything in between, if they fuck up and don't uphold the right values, violate rights, promote bad interpretations of clearly stated policies, or otherwise do things that are damaging to the United States, I will call them into my office to yell at them. If they're angrily arguing and meow, I want to call them into the office and say, okay, either win your case or experience the reality of being wrong. One of the two. I'm not going to let you sit out here and pollute the country with your bullshit words. What are the values? I don't know I don't remember what the context was in which. I don't remember what I was talking about. I don't remember which values specifically I was referring to in the moment. You have to refresh my memory about the sentence in which I said the word. I remember saying the word in a sentence recently, but Anyway, let me listen to this Matt song while you provide further clarification. I mean, as far as what values, what values do the federal government employees have to uphold? Fundamental values of promoting justice and individual rights and respect for the citizenry and willingness to engage discursively about matters of shared interest, namely about matters specific to the citizen democracy.
white
No, I'm not talking about this song.
white men don't name their babies Jesus. White men don't name their babies Jesus. I don't know why. I don't know white men don't name their
If I was going to get girls to dance for this video, and I would do that dance to your shoulder. Our girls have to do that dance. Well, okay. Another great song. Isn't that great? Yeah, he's got a lot of great shit, man. He's really good. Matt's not fucking around, you know. Matt is Matt's self-deprecating about his musicianship. Matt is like me, but a good musician and a better producer. So, I mean, you know, I like his songwriting a lot. I like a lot of his songs a lot. So, regarding this thing, what will you be doing about these affirmative action and diversity, equity, and inclusivity policies that give preferential treatment to some people? Okay, to answer that question, I will say, to the extent that such policies represent the policies of the federal government, in my opinion, they are unconstitutional and abhorrent. In other words, nobody, forget about preferential treatment. Okay, it doesn't matter if it's preferential treatment or whatever. Nobody should be reduced as a matter of a sort of institutionalized protocol in any way to a member of an arbitrary ontological group or even a non-arbitrary ontological group. So, like, that includes race, class, gender, personality type, disability status, physical appearance, weight, height. The thing to remember is that individuals experience different treatment, a different average standard of treatment from the world than each other. And it is true that some people experience an unacceptable treatment from another person in the world. And when that happens, it's called a rights violation. So if experiences unacceptable treatment from another individual, that means that other individual has violated Mia's rights. However, there's also Mia experiencing undesirable treatment. If Mia experiences consistently less desirable treatment from not just Mia, but Mia, then that means, in general, society validates them lower than any average, either than the mean or than an average of a random sampling of people or something. Okay. So I married and was married to Candace, who when I first got with her was generously plump, and by the time we got divorced, she was quite a large woman. She experienced a very much did she experience a lower average level of treatment from people because of her weight. Now, that's also not okay, but it's not a rights violation. So while it's unfortunate that different people are treated differently because other people don't follow my lead and treat everybody the same, because of that, it is true that people's lives are different from each other. Remember this: you can't be the hero who overcomes adversity without some adversity. I mean, let's say you're born into privilege, silver spoon in your mouth, and your parents are also super emotionally supportive and they love the hell out of you. That limits the number of characters you can be. You're most likely to turn out in like a storybook or whatever as an evil guy because you've had all the privileges, and the hero is most likely going to be the underprivileged guy, right? So, to the extent that these kind of differing statuses of social acceptability exist, and they do, they're so varied and so individuated between each of the two interactions of two people that occur, in which comprise a medium through which this heuristic judgment rather than data-driven judgment about an individual human being is made. Well, complete the sentence with the rest of the words that go there. Trump does not have TI. You've got to be kidding me. You've got to be kidding me. Interesting to hear. Okay, I cannot believe how much I've live streamed today. I really need to probably stop, do some SI maintenance, take a bath, maybe have a yogurt. I'm thirsty as hell. I need to get another beverage. Oh, there's some beverage in here. So this is the part of the election where it's already officially over. Now I'm just hanging out after it's over with you guys for a little bit. So don't expect anything from this part. I'm no longer on. Consider me off. Now it's just regular me. It's not my internet persona. Well, Bobby son, look, it's just officially over. You can still hang out for a little while if you want. I may end up telling a bedtime story, but the incredibly high level of quality you've come to consistently expect around here. Well, now that the official stream part's over, I don't have to uphold that standard anymore. So, that's all I got for you. Useless. But I did hire DJ. He's not here yet. He's already 6 hours late, so I'm not really sure he's going to show up. Do you guys want to rail some shit up? Let's do some rails in the bathroom. I tell you what, I will stand out here while you guys. We can't do it. No, we can't do it in the men's bathroom because it's gross. I'll stand out here and guard the women's bathroom door. And you guys go in there and do your rails. Then you come out and guard the women's bathroom door. And I'll go and do my rails. And then we don't have to do rails on the gross men's bathroom sink, okay? Will I do an instructional bong cleaning video here, fans? I could. I mean, I do know how to clean the bong pretty well, actually. People always comment on how gross it is. The thing about it is, the best bong cleaning instructional video is one that says, don't bother. Do not bother. It's just going to get dirty in like 5 seconds again. Like a week ago, maybe, I changed the water. Is this, let's see, ciao. Yeah, we're just hanging out now, might as well. If you want to enjoy your youthful experience, maybe try listening to a rap song.
Fellas, you know what I like to hear? Rap. Fellas, play in my ear. Want to hear? Want to get on? Want to hear? Rap music.
Sorry, Aaron, that's not how I clean my bong. That's
Now we ain't going nowhere with this song.
how I was cleaning my bong that day.
Of course, too.
In that moment, okay? This isn't me, by the way. This is Corey.
It's gonna take me and you.
But what he's saying is so true.
Now when I count to 4, all the beats gonna drop out. And you're gonna listen to me.
I will.
You're gonna hear me sing. You're gonna hear the words that I'm saying to the chorus. You're gonna memorize the words. And then I have some more instructions for you.
Oh, the square dance.
Uh-huh.
Where you draw a square with your finger.
1, 2, 3, 4. I like rap music.
I like to listen to it.
I like to put it in my car when I drive down the street. I like to hear the MCs talking about how they're better than the other MCs and more clever. I like rap music. I like to listen to it. I like to put it in my car when I drive down the street. I like to hear the MCs talking about how they're better than the other MCs and more clever. I like rap music. I like to listen to it. I like to put it in my car when I drive down the street. I like to hear the MCs talking about how they better than the other MCs and more clever. And we're gonna go round robin. I like to listen to it. I like to put it in my car when I drive down the street. I like to hear the MCs talking about how they better than the other MCs and more clever.
Computer
Rap music. I like to listen to it. I like to put it in my car when I drive down the street. I like to hear the MCs talking about how they better than the other MCs and more clever. I like rap music. I like to listen to it. I like to put it in my car when I drive down the street. I like to hear the MCs talking about how they better than the other MCs and more clever. I like rap. I like rap. I like to listen. I like to listen. I like to put it. I like to put it in my car when I drive down the street. I like to hear the MCs talking about how they better than the other MCs. I like rap music.
So, to quote the immortal Corey, I like rap music. I like to listen to it. I like to put it in the car when I go down the street. I like to hear the MCs talking about how they're better than the other MCs and more clever. I like rap music. Pretty good stuff, huh? Yep, that's Computadora. He's a wunderkind of. He's a wunderkind inventor. Let's have a conversation about apostrophes. Look, it's better to talk apostrophes than to have a sock full of catastrophes. As the old saying says. Those are the only two options there. That wasn't a song I wanted you to link me for you of yours though, Matt. I wanted to link that one. Cancerous, right? Is that what it's called? That song, that song has a wow factor that random people, when they see that video and hear that song, they go, "Wow, why isn't this guy famous?" You know. I want you to link me to that one if you know where it is. I've witnessed people in the past react strongly to that. English grammar is tough if you spell it Tuff. You've not made a grammatical mistake, but you're spelling something, I guess, the best. All right, well, listen, I want to hear what I'm asking Matt for, so he better find it, or else I'm going to be sad. I would never vote for a president that lets incompetence slide. I don't plan to let incompetence slide. However, I also recognize that I'm not everyone's boss, right? So to what extent are federal employees subject to the oversight of the President of the United States is an important actual question for the judicial branch to answer. I would not try to claim TikTok. What? Are you on TikTok? Why are you on TikTok? Did somebody tick your talk with a kickity clock? Where's the regular version of it? That only lasts for 1 minute at most. It may not even be a minute, but it lasts for not very long. Or just YouTube search it. Why would you Google search it? Somebody thumbs downed it? For fuck's sake, why? No, it's got 5. Oh my god. This isn't the right video, but I like it. Same song anyway. Can't see the video.
Cancer that tell me when you're coming back. Should I remind you where we are? Should I remind you where we are? And tear me down, build ocean, standing around, burning the flames. I'll gladly take on all your tears, passing through, moving fast. Me and you felt like years. Should I remind you where we are? Should I remind you where we are?
What a well-written song. Somebody's a little Mr. Songwriter. Oh. Good morning. I was having a music moment listening to Matt's very beautiful Cancerous song. I really like a lot of Matt's songs. I like, like Bluebell Chanel and like that Superman or superhero song or whatever it's called. And Long Tall Sally, Let It Ride, Let It Ride. And lots of good songs you have. So many, though. Why are you in various artists' topic? Are you a various artist? I don't trust various artists. They're so varied. You should complain about it. Hi, I'm not a various artist. Hey, don't put me down there in the brown group, various artist. Come on. I'm special and important. Various artists. Oh, shit. I'm in various artists. I tried to get put into millennial hits, but they put me in various artists. Now what am I going to do? Here we go. An exciting song for you. Oh, it's this one I was talking about, actually. Actually, no, I was talking about the other one. This is a great song, too. Yeah.
A little piece of ground that my footsteps on, but you can hear the sound that my hands are playing. I clean it up a little bit so that you can understand it. The minds are full of molecules, my brain is full of bullshit. A shiny white surface on a spaceship took me to another world, and I'm melting. I walk real softly, I carry a small stick. I see you haunt me away after it happens. Down below the furniture, I speak about the things they were. The dirt that's in my mind is purely for the shining. The shiny white surface on a spaceship took me to another world, and I'm melting. The shiny white surface on a spaceship took me to another world, and I'm melting.
I'm
floating. A shiny white surface on a spaceship took me to another world.
I'm voguing. Okay.
I'm gonna play a song by
Wonderful, beautiful. That was fantastic. Now let's hear a song that Matt and I made together. Like a couple of buddies. Me playing the drums, guys.
You can't see me bobbing my head. You can't see me bobbing my head. I assure you I'm bobbing my head. Eric is playing the drums. You can't see me making rhymes.
Well, yes,
You
I am
can't
a
see me
drummer.
drinking wine. Cause I ain't drinking wine. And this is simply a pour down. Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer went downtown. A Santa Claus wondered where the hell he could be around. These funky beats I hear, they make me want to get my beer out of the Jeep Wrangler that I drive out in the street over there. Counted those cars, counted 1, 2, 3, 4. That's how many cars there were. That equals the total number of cars you was looking for. It equals 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 1, 2, 3, 4. I just went outside and counted those cars. She counted 1, 2, 3, 4. That's how many cars there were. That equals the total number of cars you was looking for. It equals 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 1, 2, 3, 4. I just went outside and she counted herself some cars. She counted the wheel line, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh no! She got 16 wheels and always been there with 4 cars. Cause she had no 3-wheel cars and no 5-wheel cars and no 2-wheel cars and no 1-wheel cars. How many cars in the parking lot? I don't know. There was 4 cars. I don't know. There was 4 cars. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. 4. How many? 4 cars. There was motherfucking 4 cars. A motherfucking 4 cars. 4 cars. How many cars? 3 plus 1 means 4 cars. Yeah, there was 4 cars. No, I did cars. There was only 4 cars. I don't need any more cars. I got enough, cause I'm a rock star and I got the stuff. Go down to the dealership, I said to take them all. I got 4 cars, but I need a little bit more. He said, take them out the door. I'll leave your credit card and more. How many cars? More than 4. 4 cars, yeah, there were more 4 cars. You asked, I can't 4 cars. No, 5 cars. But now I'm broke. This motherfucking Christian.
Me edit that video. I made that video with my making fingers. And I believe the correct term is home buds. But Matt and I are half buddies, half homies. We're home buds. And that was 4 cars. That was a song that Matt and I improvised together many years ago. The 2 of us combined, our extroverted intuition added up to 3, which is a pretty powerful number if you're making up shit on the fly. You need hugs? Here you go. I'm sorry, what happened? You want me to sing you a sad song? When somebody loved you, everything was beautiful. Then that person left you, now you're sad. When they abandoned you. Through the summer and the fall, we had each other, that was all. Meow, 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 meow. Meow, 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 meow. I don't remember the rest of it. Does that make you feel better or worse? I'm trying to figure out how to do emotions. Thanks, H. I was this close to getting the role of the red-haired cowgirl. What's her name? Jessie in the film Toy Story 2. But some lady got it instead. I like to say you emote with your heart, you demote with your genitals. That's why the old expression, she thanks me before I come, I thank her after. Eric, I think a lot of people will love your politics. Breath of fresh air for people who are tired of high school dramatocracy. Well, yeah, I mean, I think the thing is everybody's kind of tired of it, but there's not been anybody leading a clear alternate path. You know, it's like everybody wants to fall into some groupist approach one way or the other. There appears to be no path to success that doesn't go through some rabid, foaming group. I think I present to people a genuine alternative to that, which is I refuse to shit on the group you want to shit on. I refuse to do that, just to do that. But the thing is, I'm guaranteed to shit on every bad idea, whether it's yours or theirs. So in that sense, I'm an equal opportunity shitter. I'm also guaranteed not to be subsumed by anyone's agenda. That means I'm rejecting not just your agenda, but theirs as well. So to the extent that you really hate that group, don't worry. I'm not representing that group. I oppose that group for the same reason I oppose your group, which is they're both agenda-based. So at least there's that. It's like everybody can trust me not to favor their enemy. And I don't know if, like, even running as a Republican, kind of go through the Republican primary saying, look, I'm going to be honest with you. You can trust me to favor what's best for America. You can trust me to make rational determinations about policy decisions and to take the job seriously and to be like Oliver Lionhead says, okay? But I'm not going to pretend like I'm going to act as though I'm a partisan once I get into office. It's not going to happen. So I'm not going to pretend like it in the primaries, let alone the general election. So, I mean, I am going to have to win some hearts and minds in the Republican Party because they're going to have to choose me over, willfully or at least knowingly over somebody who is going to be a team player potentially. I'm telling them right off the bat, I'm not a team player. I'm not here to be a team player for any team but the United States of America. Okay. Now I think I want to stop this. I need to take care of myself. I've been doing a pretty good job since I got this bottle. Much better than I typically do. Tonight represents a bit of an exception, maybe. It's funny. I took it. I took like 3 this morning. I took 2 the last couple of days each, which is what I'm actually prescribed is 2. So I'm almost taking the prescribed amount right now, and it still keeps me up from freaking 3 in the morning. Let me see what this one is. Links, exciting and new. Touch my nose, and I'm smelling you. This link here delights me with flavors and smells galore. Okay. Paste.
Asking God for a vacation, but it doesn't last very long in a state of disaster.
I was growing as an artist. Okay. I was learning things. They're growing. I wasn't ripe as a fruit yet, okay? You make a good point. Virtue doesn't last very long in a state of disaster.
Grandma was around, she talked to me about the washing. The world was wide and empty then and also rather boring. Leaving Grandma's shop is just exactly what's in store. And now I find my joy through a visual snort. And I said, but she doesn't last very long in the state of disaster. Virtue doesn't last long in the state of disaster. You know that all your cities are going down. They out the master because you spend all of your time playing master blaster, but you ain't never gonna find a way to make time go faster. Virtue doesn't last long in the state of disaster. You know that all your cities are going down. They out the master because you spend all of your time playing master blaster, but you ain't never gonna make time go any faster. Virtue doesn't last long in the state of disaster. You know that all your cities are going down. They out the master. Virtue doesn't last long in the state of disaster. Virtue doesn't last very long. Virtue doesn't last very long in the state of disaster.
It's true. So true. Virtue doesn't last very long in the state of disaster. This is the newest song I have. And the last song I'm going to play before I end this, which is the current mix and master of this. I may still need to do a thing too. There's one spot where it's kind of a weird, like, sharp edge kind of. I don't know how to describe it. Anyway, here it is. It's unlisted.
Brooding here won't do any good, but brooding's more and more my style. I see the true ways of standing where we stood, 'cause I've been stuck here a while. And that's despite a natural selfishness that makes it easy to have fun. A flutters in the gut, become a fist, and all my visions come undone.
I tried to string this track and dream the avenue away, but avenue realities are breaking every day, and for a bit I am out of it. I am out of it. Reason still unsaid, still I need to get out of me what's inside my head.
Seems like everybody's so sensitive, so ready to just get mad. I seek the civil ways of living like a kid, 'cause who wants to be the dad? Have we lost our sense of scope and scale, our capacity to laugh, a sense to know when not to wail, and how to tip the golden calf?
I tried to string this track and dream the avenue away, but avenue realities are breaking every day, and for a bit I am out of it. I am out of it. Reason still unsaid, still I need to get out of me what's inside my head.
I'm sad, so sad for me, sad for him, unhappily. Triple sorrow, I'll go home, lose it seem clear down to the bone. I'm sad, so sad for me, sad for him, unhappily. Triple sorrow, I'll go home, lose it seem clear down to the bone. I'm sad, so sad for me, sad for him, unhappily. Triple sorrow, I go home, blues that seem clear down to the bone. I'm sad, so sad for me, sad for him, happily.
Oh, wonderful, oh, wonderful. Good night, my beloved friends. Matthew, thank you so much for stopping by and engaging me in this walk down music memory lane and music future lane, as well as music present lane. And remember what Boba Fett says, because it's so important. Still, the sound of voices whisper tenderly. Never have truer words been spoken. Tenderly. Did you hear me? You hear me make a pun? Matt's making me stick around for a little while longer. I'm actually going to watch this video, of course. Matt's playing. Ha ha. Look at me. Look at me. Make Eric quit. Keep turning around and coming back after leaving. That's what he's doing. He's playing a funny game called Aha, look at Eric. Jump back and forth like a boorish boob. whatever happens in life, I just don't want to be accused of being a boorish boob. Anything but that. A Moorish noob would be fine. You're gonna get me fucking copyrighted. Jesus Cristo, Matthew Cage. I can't watch those copyrighted videos while live streaming. Good night, everybody. Good night.